for the upcoming right-hander, brake 30 meters later and ease off the pressure.
Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another round of the absolutely brilliant, fantastic, frantic action that is brought to you in the SimRacing International America's GT Challenge Championship. Well, brought to you on iRacing, of course, the premier sim racing platform available only on PC. And what a round we have in store today. Because as we continue our tour around the Americas, round number 3 of 10 sees us make our way back to the North American continent, and with it, of course, back to where's the United States of America for the Virginia International Raceway. However, in a twist, it's not going to be the classic full course layout of the Virginia International Raceway circuit that plays host to our drivers. Oh no, we've decided to up the ante, and we're going all in for the best part of the 4.07 mile grand course, which brings together both its major layouts, 23 corners at its core, and a circuit like no other when it presents an absolutely tantalising test of our drivers' talents and abilities. But as we get ready to go racing today, we welcome you all to this live broadcast of Circuit Sign, brought to you on the SimRacing International YouTube channel. Indeed, go to youtube.com and search your SimRacing International or SRI, and you could be tuning in there after our recent rebrand from Evolution Sim Racing. And in the commentary booth, bringing you all the racing action as it unfolds today, we have myself, my name is Paul Walsh, and alongside me, it's not quite Darren Thacker, but instead we've got none other than James Bostock alongside me. Good evening to you, James, and how are you doing today?
Good evening, Paul. Yes, I am super excited about watching this and trying to keep up with all the action tonight in this America's GT Challenge. Normally a driver or participant, shall we say, in the series, and Dara cannot be with us and available tonight, so I volunteered to step in to the great pleasure of Robin Noel Brown, who is reserving for me tonight. So I'll be keeping an eye on what he does with my car tonight, Paul, hoping he doesn't damage it too much. But yeah, super excited about this one. It's going to be the first time for me co-commentating, shall we say. So usually I have the job of looking after the OBS and also the cameras and everything else and leading the broadcast. So it's a great pleasure to be kind of sitting alongside you tonight in the booth and letting you do all the hard work, and and me just cutting through to the little bits of action every now and again. So yeah, super excited about this, and wow, what a circuit. I mean, you know, VIR on its own is fantastic, but when you do the grand course, I mean, this is going to be something very special tonight.
Oh, 100%. I'm with you on that, James. And well, I think there'll be a fair share of the hard work between us as we try to keep track of everything as it unfolds. Indeed, the first 2 rounds have definitely demonstrated that. But as we talk about our schedule so far and what is still lying in wait, well, of course, we make our way then to the 14th of September today. It's another Sunday, and it is another 60-minute race on the cards here at the Virginia International Raceway circuit. Last time out, we were in Canada at the Mosport Park circuit, and well, there it was the big question of can anybody stop the runaway charges of the Enosis esports drivers in both the GTE and GT3 classes, with Francisco Barrionuevo leading the way to a 12-point advantage now over Hayden Miller, as we'll see shortly, with back-to-back victories. Meanwhile, in the GT3 class, we have seen an absolute charge from Ale Torres, who, whilst he may have fallen short of pole position compared to Reece Saunders, in the end did not fall short of absolutely dominating proceedings over the race distance. Albeit, it has to be said, his rivals were a little bit closer compared to how it was all the way back at Daytona. But after today, we've got plenty more in store, and next up on the cards will be round number 4 at the Interlagos circuit. We have the second of our 90-minute extended feature races on the 28th of September. But as we come into them this round, well, let's give you a recap of the championship standings as they currently stand. We begin with GTE and the Drivers' Championship there for the GTEs. As we just mentioned, it's Barrionuevo who leads the way with back-to-back wins for Enosis Esports ahead of Hayden Miller there. The Phoenix Racing Blue driver who with back-to-back second places, he was absolutely gutted not to have made it a win at Mosport. He had the strategy, he had the pace, but he also had one too many mistakes, and that's what set him backwards there for Phoenix Racing Blue. However, a third place for Graham Wildemont after a bit of a disappointing fourth place at Daytona means the Soy Boys Racing driver is not too far behind in the hunt. And then we do have Justin Noel there for SJS Racing in fourth ahead of Jaden Scotton for Flatliner Racing. Outside the top 5, it's Ian Stitchby for Arrive and Drive by RA Motorsports on 63 points, 4 clear of Max Wheeler. The 3WR driver has shown a lot of promise so far this season, but it definitely has not quite paid off the way he's wanted it to in his Corvette C8R ahead of Thomas Pugh for Axis Simsport Lightning. And then we do have Lewis Kenyon for Biltong and Bangers and Matthew Bacon around off your top 10 with a sim coach driver there, proving elusive to our cameras last time at Mosport. We finally captured him, and back-to-back 11th places, he's been enjoying some brilliant scraps. Tim Perry and Michael Brooks are around off your GTE driver top 12 standings. But James, over to you, I think, so we've got some stories with the GT3s.
We certainly do. Yeah, the GT3s are super competitive. So leading the way on 125 points with 2 wins is Ali G. Torres for Enosis Esports. And I think that Ali G. Torres is going to have his work cut out tonight, Paul, because Yanis Albert is returning. And currently, if I look to my left-hand screen, Yanis has actually set the fastest lap in practice by 4/10 from Ali this evening. So this is going to be really interesting to see how Ali, the championship leader, copes with Yanis Albert tonight. So going to be a great battle between those two. We've got Harvey Wheeler for 3WR, Three-Wheeler Racing, in second place. So Harvey is the son of Max Wheeler for the 3WR team. So going fantastic with that second at Daytona and that 5th last time out on 101 points. And then in third place, we've got my regular teammate of Pedro Luis da Silva for GPX SimSport Onyx. So Pedro's had a couple of great rounds. He's been unfortunate on both the first 2 rounds that he has had last lap incidents that have gone against him a little bit, but with a third and a fourth, he's not far behind on 96 points, so just 5 points behind Harvey. Then in fourth place, we've got Bobby Moss turning his hand to the GT3s, a bit of a GT4 specialist is Bobby, as we saw in the European GT Championship. I have to get my names right. So Bobby currently in fourth place, moved over to Phoenix Racing Blue in the Mercedes on 81 points. He's closely followed by Sigurd Christopher Wamsler for Panda Spec Motorsports Green on 81 points. And Archie Williams from SJS Racing is in sixth place on 63 points, so 18 points behind. So a bit of a gap there from 5th to 6th, so the gap is spreading a little bit there. In 7th place for the Vulcan Fasteners by Glasstech Racing team, we've got the, I was going to say ESR admin, but I'm going to say SRI admin. I'm going to get caught up with that.
That's
I'm
the
sure
first pound
tonight.
coin in the swear jar for tonight. We can't.
You told me they were 20 pence pieces, so now it's gone up. Now we're live.
Oh, it's
But
inflation.
Yeah, Joe Glass, 7th place. So in the Mercedes, so switched from his traditional Porsche. In the Mercedes, 7th place. So Joe will be looking for a good run out tonight. 8th place, we've got Matthew Croft from Axis SimSport Ice on 47 points, followed by Wesley Van Ren in the 9 Pegasus Pantera Ferrari. Justin Eloff is rounding out the top 10 for Bilton and Bangers on 30 points. And then best of the rest, we've got Chris Jennings in 11th place for Axis SimSport Fire. And we've got John Ebersole from Panda Spec Motorsports Blue in 12th place. John Ebersole did have a great round last time at Mosport, but did get caught up in a last lap incident. So John certainly got the pace, so it'll be interested to see how he fares tonight. But yeah, super close field, only 2 rounds in, a lot still to play for, Paul.
Oh, 100%, James. And well, as we come on to the Teams Championship, ladies and gentlemen, we look to the pro teams here. And as we can see, it is Inosis Esports who really are dominating at the front after 2 rounds. Now, it's not perhaps right to use the word dominating, but they have picked up all 4 possible wins over the 2 rounds. And can anybody stop them from making it now 6 wins on the bounce? Because Barrionuevo and Ali Torres have proven to be an absolute leading pair. However, behind them, Hayden Miller and Bobby Moss for Phoenix Racing on 194 points. They find themselves in the no man's land of trying to bring down the leaders, but making sure to steer clear of Freewheeler Racing. Speaking of which, the father-son combination of Max and Harvey there on 160 points. They find themselves under a little bit more pressure with SJS Racing and Octane Racing Academy or RA Motorsports' teams right behind them, and the gap between the 3 teams there only 12 points. Outside the top 5 of the pro teams, well, it's to 125 points there, and well, it won't be James Bostock piloting the car today. He's been substituted by the man he mentioned only earlier on, and that being, of course, Robin Noel Brown, or Noel Edmonds Brown, as he's also nicknamed. And well, he's ahead of his teammate there, Pedro Luis da Silva, in terms of the points earned. But to be fair, they'll be absolutely looking to try and move forward today, as will Panda Spec Motorsports, a first 17 points behind, with Jesse Polkainen and Sigurd Christopher Wamsler's pairing matching up against Soy Boys Racing, and then Flatline Racing and Biltong and Bangers round off your pro team's top 10. But as for the Prams, James, it's a lot tight here, and points right now, I think everyone's trying to find them in supply.
It certainly is, Paul. It certainly is. So yeah, the teams championship, as we know, was separated by the combined I rating of both teams' drivers. So you can have a few anomalies thrown in, like the odd 1K I rating driver being forced into the pro teams with Mr. Louis da Silva, for example. But yeah, certainly on the Pro-Am side, where you've got 2 kind of 2K, around the 2K I rating drivers, this is proving to be a really, really close competitive championship. So leading the way in first place, although it's equal first place, but I'm assuming that this is kind of done on countback. We've got the Vulcan Fasteners team by Glasstec Racing of Nick Stubb in the GTE and Joe Glass in the GT3, but they're tied on points with Axis SimSport. I don't remember which Axis SimSport team name suffix that it is, because there's so many of them. But yeah, one of the Axis SimSport
They're on ice,
teams,
I would say.
They're on ice, are they? They're dancing on ice. They'll be dancing on ice tonight in that infield, I'll tell you. But yeah, Andre Muntean and Matthew Croft equal on points. And only 2 points behind them is the Simcoach team of Matthew Bacon and Robin Pownier. So, and only 6 points behind them, we've got the other Axis SimSport team of Nils Cooler and Chris Jennings. So both of Nils Cooler and Chris Jennings been in many a ESR and now SRI championship. So yeah, nothing between those top 4 teams at all. So everything is to play for tonight. And then rounding out the top 5, just a few points behind, or only 14 points behind, of the 9 Pegasus Pantera team of Diego Reiser and Wesley Van Rens. Again, another absolute capable pairing that can mix it with any of the 4 teams above them. So yeah, it's going to be really, really important tonight that these guys try to keep it on track, keep it clean, and maximise the points that they can get. Then moving on to the other teams. So we've got Panda Spec Motorsports of Rob Edgell and John Ebersole in 6th place on 30 points. So still only 6 points behind P5. We've then got Phoenix Racing Red of Jim Fox and Grant Miller. We all know that Jim Fox is a good peddler, and Grant Miller's got a lot more pace than his I rating shows, that's for sure. And I'm sure he'll take great pleasure in listening to this back a little bit later on. We've then got Rob Mackay and Owen Seward of Dexterous Motorsports Zemex. Again, Rob's been going absolutely great in that GTE. Had a couple of unfortunate incidents. I think Owen Seward is being substituted or reserved tonight by the DXT team owner, which is Danny Weir, followed by the other DXT team of Martin Kenyon and James Hayworth. So a bit of team rivalry there, Paul, I think. It's going to be a bit of pride on the line. And rounding out the top 10, we've got Samuel Clark and Dean Sheesby for the Moonshiners Racing Club.
Oh, indeed. A very close fight inside that Primes Championship, like you say, James. It's going to be exciting to see how it all plays out today. And our host venue today, as our drivers do combat on four wheels, will be at the VIR Grand Course, located in the commune of Alton in Halifax County of the Virginia state of the US of A. 4.07 miles in length, 6.55 kilometres, depending on your preference of units, and 23 corners. And as we mentioned earlier, marrying together the outer loop, which is known as the full course, and also the inner loop, or the Patriot Course, together, and all connected by a number of joining roads. But the main theme around here is the fact that you do have a very tricky inner segment from turn 13 all the way through to turns 19A and 19B. Very narrow, really only appropriate for one wide given the width of the GTE and GT3 machines, whereas the rest of the circuit you can go two wide at most points, and that means overtaking around here and strategy, much like at Mosport, are going to prove absolutely pivotal. Now, we can't repeat the name of turn number 13, but otherwise we will be opening up the SRI swear jar, and indeed it's 20p for every time somebody says Evolution SimRacing instead of SimRacing International, and I think we're going to be escalating it to 50p for every time we say the B word there with regards to turn 13, which we want to keep this PG where we can and not go 12 plus. But as I think James and I right now, we're definitely going to be under a lot of pressure to do so, and feel free to keep a count in the YouTube chat, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, That's Playing Host is an absolutely brilliant one. But enough talking about the scene, and indeed we set the scene for quite appropriately. Let's head back to circuit side, and as we do, it is time for us to head into quali. And as our drivers make the way around, well, we are 5.5 minutes in, James, but to be fair, we're a long lap like this, plus also plenty of qualifying laps available to our drivers. I think they're going to appreciate the fact they've got plenty of time at their disposal to try and get a good lap in, as Michael Brooks seems to be setting the benchmark in GTE.
Yeah, I mean, what a track, Paul. I mean, it's been interesting to watch in the Discord this week how different drivers have approached it. You know, some of the drivers absolutely hated the infield section from the famous B corner all the way through, coming back out onto the roller coaster at turn 20. Some of them have absolutely hated it initially, and then as they've actually forced themselves to learn the circuit and kind of do more and more laps, you know, it's been reported back that some of them have changed their mind and absolutely loved it. I think it's fair to say you're absolutely right that they're not going to be able to go too wide through there. But I think what's possibly going to throw kind of a little bit of an unknown in there is that whilst equal pace cars might not be able to go too wide, when it comes to GTE and GT3, who knows, with the extra downforce that the GTEs have got and the cornering speed that sometimes, especially the top level GTE drivers can hold, I just wonder if there is going to be a few multi-class overtaking. I wouldn't call them sends, but certainly attempts. Is that a better word to use? Yeah, I just wonder whether there's going to be some kind of multi-class overtake attempts in there that maybe cause it to be, you know, a little bit too close comfort. But I mean, either way, it's a very long lap. So we've got Michael Brooks sat there with a 2 minute 18.7 in the GTE class. I think from memory, and don't quote me on this, but I think they've got 4 laps to get their times in. So 4 laps on a 2 minute 18 plus an out lap is going to take up the best part of 12 minutes, something along those lines of the qualifying time. And of course, on the GT3 qualifying, we are into, and we're a long way into now, the new tyre model. So, you know, those tyres are only going to be really warm and performing maybe at the very end of the second lap, maybe the third, but definitely the fourth, Paul. So the GT3 class is going to be very, very tight indeed.
Oh, 100%. It'll be intriguing to see exactly where all the best times come from our drivers. They make the way on around the circuit right now, and with the plenty of time available. Indeed, it is 4 laps plus the out lap, like you say. So it does mean that whilst in theory they could wrap up their qualifying session in the best part of 12 to 13 minutes, some drivers may decide to take their time a little bit more. Speaking of which, one of whom, we heaped a bit of praise on him earlier because he's transitioned from GT4s to GT3s, and that Mercedes AMG Evo seems to be in perfect harmony with him. It's Bobby Moss making his way on around right now for his second flying lap. Invalidated his first one, but I suspect that was more of a trial run to make sure the tyres are up to temperature. But he heads on around here, and well, as he does, it's an absolutely packed field here today, James. I mean, I think we've got the best part of 56 drivers on the grid, as we just had the late arrival of Scott Kostrich, and I believe he's filling in for somebody today.
He is, yeah. It was a last-minute reserve for Mr. Ludbrook, so I think, unfortunately, John has a slightly self-inflicted, shall we just call it feeling under the weather? the day. So, yeah, he asked at last minute for Scott Kostrick to fill in for him. So Scott will be reserving for John Ludbrook in the Porsche. So it's not unlike Scott to arrive towards the session, towards the end. Scott sometimes does a bit of offline practice first and then jumps in the session. So be interesting to see how Scott gets on. But yeah, coming back to Bobby Moss, fantastic GT4 driver. We all know kind of from his sort of Minecraft racing team up with Yannis Albert, what a fantastic GT4 driver he is. Really turned his hand to the GT3s now, and after that fantastic result last week or 2 weeks ago at Mosport, yeah, who knows where Bobby's going to go in this grid and in this championship in terms of how far up he can get. So not set a time yet though, Paul. So yeah, like you say, maybe invalidated that first one. So yeah, he'll be really careful to make sure he doesn't get an off track with what looks to be this one and another two remaining.
Indeed, it's a tough task, and even the smallest of off-tracks immediately invalidate the lap. The track limits here on the iRacing Simulator platform being absolutely punitive, but to be fair, the expectation is that drivers will stay within those track limits and deliver the best possible lap time. Speaking of which, Michael Brooks has just returned to the top of the tower with a 2-minute 18.778 as Francisco Barrionuevo, meanwhile, looks to try and close the gap down. It is 2 tenths between the two of them and Graham Wildemon. Well, we're talking about the Ford GT driver here who, in GTE, at Mosport, the fastest driver with regards to one lap pace in that Ford GT. However, over a race distance, the tyre for the Ford GT plus also the sacrifices he made to get this car to the very front of the field became clear in the fact that he'd prioritised corner speed and therefore downforce over straight line speed, and that was the delta between himself and Hayden Miller and also Barrionuevo, in the fact the Ford GT just didn't have it on the straights, had it all in the corners, but with the long back straight all the way up down Andretti, that's where it all changed. But here today we've got a lot more corners. We do have a couple of long straights, albeit the only one that is, you could argue, a straight in the literal sense is the one you're seeing right now, coming from Oak Tree Bend all the way up towards turn number 13. And as he does make his way into the proverbial turn number 13 hairpin, well, onto the brakes he'll go, and well, he'll absolutely bite as much as he can into there, trying to carry that speed through as Barrionuevo goes the fastest of everybody now, 218.723. Lap times continue to come on in. GT3, meanwhile, James, it's William Humphrey at the very top of the tile at the moment, and in that on that BMW M4 Evo. Recently released, of course. We do have the updated BMW M4 package now. I wonder if that's going to mix things up here, because we also have, of course, a balance of performance update for the GT3s.
We do, and I think it's fair to mention both of the Grazing Good drivers. So unfortunately, they couldn't join us last time out in Mosport. They were prevented from doing so due to an incident at the first round. But they are back tonight, and what I will say about both William and Marius, that there was a little incident at Daytona, and both of them absolutely 100% 9-carat gold respectful drivers. They said, yeah, absolutely no problem. We'll sit out for Mosport and then we'll be back for VIR. So a massive thanks to both of them, because it's not easy when you have these incidents. So I just wanted to recognise that. But yeah, both of them fantastic drivers. And we've got Marius Ibmer, William's teammate, currently in P5, and William leading the GT3 class in that BMW. So yeah, whilst I said that Ali G. Torres might have his work cut out with Yannis Albert, I had forgot about the returning William Humphrey as well. So yeah, and then we've got Pedro Luis da Silva, who is 0.05 of a second behind Ali G. Torres. So although it's showing up as 0.5 on one timing screen, as it's showing up as half a second on one timing screen, and on another one it's showing as 500. So that's me getting confused, flicking between the two screens. But it's going to be close. It's going to be very, very close indeed. William Humphrey will be definitely looking to stamp his authority on his return.
Oh, 100%, and we look forward to seeing whether he can do so and put himself right towards the front. It's going to be a tall task, but speaking of tall tasks, well, we're going to have the task very shortly of bringing you an on-board lap with one of our drivers, albeit it won't be with Chris Jennings because he heads towards the line. This is going to be the last lap he delivers for Axis Sim Sport in this qualifying session. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to be riding on board with Jim Fox as he takes us around, and let's walk you through it then. So as he makes his way down to turn number 1, hard on the brakes there, and will roll his way through the long right-hander. A very deep corner you go into, and a very late exit point as well at turn number 1. But into turn number 2 he goes, through left-hand king, and onto the brakes for NASCAR Bend at turn number 3. Named NASCAR Bend, of course, because it's where it caught out multiple NASCAR drivers in a road race all the way back in the 90s. Through turn 4, left hook into the right. There's not quite a jab here, but as he makes way out, he'll jab the throttle, and then he'll go full out as he roars his way from right to left, and now it's through the snake. Now as he goes full throttle here in his GT3 machine, it's going to require full commitment from Fox all the way as he heads up towards the highest point of the circuit, coming through turns 7, 8 and 9. So left, right he goes, and in suddenly at the crest he has to go onto the brakes because he's got to go through the quick left-hander of turn number 10, and down he comes in towards Oak Tree Bend at turns 11 and 12. The extended hairpin, 2 right-handers, but takes some grass, and Fox just about nestles the car onto the circuit, albeit that's going to be a validated lap, and we're not going to get the rest of the lap there with Jim Fox, and he'll be frustrated at that one. An easy mistake to make, James, be fair, but at the same time as well, when it was his last lap available to him, it means he'll be starting towards the very back of the GTEs.
Yeah, is that is it called commentator's curse or commentator's coincidence? Because I'm never sure on iRacing. You know, I'm absolutely convinced that when the commentator is on the driver, that it does something. It does something to the handling for the entertainment value. But yeah, very, very unfortunate for Jim there. I'm just tracking on my other screen. We've got Bobby Moss, who's still on the lap. We've got Wesley Van Rens, who's still on the lap. And we've got Rhys Saunders. So Rhys Saunders down in P15 currently. So yeah, a little bit. I know that listening or reading the Discord earlier that Rhys said that it's a new car or new Evo model, new track that he'd not really done much practice on before. So yeah, being down in P15, I mean, Rhys is a bit of a peddler as well. He's got some pace on him. So I would imagine that Rhys is probably looking to get a little bit higher up than P15. He has done all his laps, so he's done 4.5 laps. So he's obviously just doing it as a bit of practice. The only guy left with a lap who's just coming in to complete his final lap now is Bobby Moss. And Bobby Moss is currently halfway around, just going through the Oak Tree corner. The interesting story about that corner, Paul, is that there did actually used to be an oak tree there, didn't there?
It did, and unfortunately I believe it had to be felled only about 5 or 6 years ago due to the tree gradually dying at its roots, unless I'm mistaken, but it still retains name even though the infamous tree is no longer there.
Can you imagine how many incidents that the SRI American GT Challenger would have if they'd left that tree there? Crikey me, that would be interesting. So yeah, Bobby is coming through the twisty section now of 15A, B and 16, then onto the tight right-hander of 16. So I don't think this is going to be too much of a problem, to be honest, Paul, because I think the drivers, whilst you get a difficult, tricky section like this, I think it puts drivers on high alert. So they're less inclined to take risks in a section where they know there is, you know, a greater risk, shall we say. So I think, I hope that we're going to be okay for the race, and if we're not, then I'm going to blame my fellow series admin Rob Mackay for choosing the track. But I did promise that I wouldn't actually own up and let everybody know that it was him that chose this version of the circuit. So I'm glad that I've kept that just between us and it's not gone any further.
Oh, indeed. Well, as he makes his way across the line, Bobby Moss, 11th in GT3 as he comes on through it, moves up to 8th there with a late improvement. A good one there, 2:23.546. Rhys Saunders out there at the moment. And, well, we do have Scott Kostrich on one last lap, and as soon as I say that and cut to him, goodness me, the GPX driver goes around there, going on down through the run of turns 15A and 16, that being into spiral, essentially, and he spiraled his way around, and in fact, as he returns, I think he's turned on the sat-nav there and realised he needs to go the other way. But how quickly he can make a mistake there, but that will essentially bring qualifying to a close, ladies and gentlemen, and well, I think right now Scott bit fuming mad about the fact that he's gone off once. He's trying to get back on, brings it back on again. It's not quite worked out for Scott, has it, James?
No, not at all, not at all. I'm sure he'll blame John and the setup of the car, or the condition that John's left it in for him, one or the other. But I think Scott had said in the team Discord that he was just going to kind of follow the pack round and try to stay out of trouble and just maybe pick up 1 or 2 points for the team's championship. So fair play to him for kind of stepping in and covering John at relative last minute. So, but yeah, I mean, this number of cars, Paul, is, I mean, rather your PC than mine. Goodness gracious, this is going to be a lot with this circuit, with all the trees and all the foliage that iRacing produces. I'm just having a quick look now down the timings and some of the names that are jumping out at me. I mean, it's kind of bittersweet for me, really, is that we've got Robin Noel Brown in P7, who looks to be the highest place reserve. So yeah, Robin's proving that Corvette GTE can pedal, and it's clearly me that's holding it back. But yeah, some other kind of notable performances is that we've got Andre Muntean in P15. On the GT3 side, Harvey Wheeler with a P5, very, very close to the top 4. So yeah, going to be a super, super, super close race. I don't really know how we're going to keep up with it all, Paul.
We'll do our best to, no doubt about it, James. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we make our way to the grid for our one and only race today. And this is how they all line up at the Virginia International Raceway's Grand Course in round number 3 of the SimRacing International America's GT Challenge Championship for 2025 here on iRacing. It is Francisco Barrionuevo who has taken pole position for Enosis Esports, GTE and overall. He'll be joined on the front row of the grid by Michael Brooks for the wrong stuff. Well, I don't know if he's living up to his team name, because he's definitely doing a lot of the right stuff in qualifying, and that is a very good lap there, only half a tenth between the two of them. Graham Wildemont for Soy Boys Racing, he lines up in 3rd place, and I do know that the Wildemont fan crew are all there in the YouTube chat at the moment as we say hello to Heather Hart and Morgan as well, who says that Virginia International Raceway can be compared to be the green hell of the US of A. I do like that analogy, and well, thank you for that, Morgan. We're definitely going to coin that one. We also say hello to a few more of you there, and we'll give you all a shout out in due course as everyone lines up in the pit lane to get ready for the formation lap. Something that's quite characteristic of the VIR circuit is that the formation lap doesn't start on the grid, it starts in the pit lane and makes its way all the way around. This is going to be a very long formation lap at that. But still, carrying away down through the grid. So Wildemont will start this one in 3rd, looking to try and go for his first win of the season. Tim Perry lines up 4th there for Altitude 3M Esports. Good qualifying session for him, a best performance of the season in qualifying so far. Then we have Maris Hibmer in the BMW M8. That's impressive there from the Grays and Good Racing driver. Having served what was the race ban, the team are back on the grid, and well, the Danishman is there 5th ahead of Hayden Miller for Phoenix Racing Blue. And then we have behind the Scotsman none other than Robin Noel Brown, and it's going to be there for the GPX SimSport Onyx driver. Way forward, he's the highest placed reserve driver of his class, as James points out statistically. A good effort there, and it could be a sign of what's to come. Max Wheeler for 3WR lines up in 8th, as we say hello to Gary Wheeler there in the YouTube chat, who's cheering on the Wheelers and hoping they all have a great race. It's great to see all the family getting together. Behind Wheeler, it's going to be Nick Stubb for Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tech and Jaden Scotton for Flatline Racing X, who round off your top 10. In 11th, we do have Justin Knoll for SJS Racing ahead of Lewis Kenyon for Biltong and Bangers. Then it's Thomas Pugh for Axis SimSport Lightning ahead of Jesse Pulakainen for Pandaspet and Motorsports Green. Then we'll have Andre Muntean for Axis SimSport Ice ahead of GPX SimSport Xenon's Robin Aston, who starts 16th. With 17th going to Niels Kula for Axis SimSport Fire. Watch out for him, he's normally very quick in the races but struggles in qualifying, it would seem. Martin Kenyon, another fast driver as well for Dexterous Motorsports Quem. He starts 18th ahead of Pete Piver for LS Racing. And then we do have Samuel Clark there for Moonshiners Racing Club rounding off your top 20. But there's still plenty more drives for us to walk through, ladies and gentlemen. Please bear with us, because Matthew Bacon starts 21st today for SimCoach, and he is only ahead of Rob Edgell there by the best part of a 10th. The Pandaspet Motorsports Blue driver starting 22nd ahead of Rob Mackay for Dexterous Motorsports M, with Dalton Hall at 24th on the grid for Pandaspet Motorsports. We then have Andrew Fellows starts off the 13th row of the grid for Flatline Racing ahead of Tiago Reza. The 9 Pegasus Panther driver then is followed up by Jim Fox for Phoenix Racing Red, and that is the end of the GTE group all the way through this grid. We then come to GT3s, and on GT3 pole position, it's William Humphrey who leads them around with a delay for Grays and Good Racing with a new race start procedure for the GT3s as of today. He'll be joined then by Ale Torres and Pedro Luis da Silva on row number 15 for Enosis Esports and GPX SimSport Onyx. And Ale Torres once again misses out on pole by only what was a grand total of 3/10 this time, but he's always one looking for the win in the races. Yannis Albert on the grid for his first round of the season. The arrive and drive by RA Motorsports driver. He's one to watch out for from Germany, starting 31st ahead of the Briton of Harvey Wheeler for 3WR. Archie Williams starts in 33rd for SJS Racing ahead of Jonas Larsson for Flatline Racing X, with row number 18 going to the combination of Bobby Moss for Phoenix Racing Blue and Matthew Croft for Axis SimSport Ice. Expect some fireworks between them. Sigurd Christopher Wamsler starts in 37th for Panda Spit and Motorsports Green ahead of Joe Glass for Vulcan Fasteners by Glass Tech, who was looking quite impressive in qualifying, but I think a few mistakes just cost him a bit dear on a loose Mercedes. However, not going loose was John Ebersol for Panda Spit Motorsports Blue. He starts 39th ahead of Ashley Brooks for Axis SimSport Lightning. Then we have outside the top 40, we continue with 41st place going to Wesley Van Rens for 9 Pegasus Panthera. A good qualifying performance from him in his Ferrari 296. Ahead of Joe Glass, well, not Joe Glass, I should say not Ashley Brooks either, as I finally find it the third time of asking. It's Reece Saunders for Altitude at 3M Esports. Chris Jennings starts 43rd for Active SimSport Fire ahead of Ed Juncker for Flatline Racing. And, well, we can see the cheering on there for the Mr. Juncker as well. And then we have Rowan Powner for SimCoach ahead of Mikey Story for Biltong and Bangers, ahead of Brandon White for LS Racing and Lucas Finco for the Wrong Stuff. Behind the Wrong Stuff driver, it's then Francois Brandet, who's substituting for James Howarth today for Dexterous Motorsports Gwem. And from the Frenchman, it's to Dean Tyler, 50th on this grid, ahead of Simon Hunt for Great Mass Motorsport and Grant Miller for Phoenix Racing Red. Final full row of the grid, it's Scott Kostrich for GPX SimSport Xenon, ahead of John Malnerich for Soy Boys Racing. And last but not least, in 55th, Dexterous Motorsport Zems, Danny Weir. Well, that is the rundown of the grid, ladies and gentlemen, and in good time as well, because we are not too far away from going green flag racing. And when we do, well, it's going to be to our GTEs to take us racing first and foremost. And at the very front of them is the man who once again finds himself on pole, Francisco Barrionuevo. And James, it's a packed grid, 27 GTEs, and while we do the mathematics, 28 GT3s, 55 cars here today in the US state of Virginia. We've got an absolute banger race about to kick underway, 60 minutes of racing. We've got plenty to be excited about.
Yeah, it's it's really strange, Paul, sat this side watching this number of cars actually on the grid. I'm just kind of flicking through on my own screen at the gaps between the GTEs and the GT3s, and yeah, this is absolutely phenomenal to see. I just don't know how we're going to cover it all, but we're certainly going to do our best, that's for sure. So yeah, Williams left a nice big gap between the GT3s and the GTEs, and we've got the GTEs now coming through the final section, so the safety car will peel in, and then it will be left to Francisco Barrionuevo to decide to go on green or within 1 second of green, and racing will be underway, Paul.
Oh, absolutely well said, James. Well, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, for the third time this season, Francisco Barrionuevo makes his way down the start-finish straight, and as he does, he leads the field to the green, but alongside him, Michael Brooks there. 2 Corvettes on the front row, the revs rise, and it's lights out, and away we go here for round number 3 of the championship, and look at that, Graham Wilderman immediately on the attack here up the inside as they head in towards the opening corner. He's going to be looking for the move onto the brakes as quickly as he can. Maris Hibma behind, also trying to square off there as all of our GTs make their way through. A couple of cold breaks there, causing some lockups, but Orva drives safely on through the opening corner and not fall into the grass. But as they head in towards NASCAR Bend, meanwhile in the GT3s, William Humphrey has got the drop on everybody as he makes his way into the opening braking zone. Ala Torres watching from behind under braking. Meanwhile, that's free wide. Oh, goodness me, that's a turnaround, and that is going to be Jonas Larsson who's turned the wrong way. The field scatters around the stranded driver, and will those who had to park right behind him. That's unfortunate. It's a traffic jam at turn number 1, but they are able to clear it eventually, and there's some wounds there. Francois Brandet and also Scott Kostrich getting caught up. We'll have to get a replay of that when we can. But meanwhile, from the chaos of the GT3s back to the smooth start of the GTEs, well, Barrionuevo here trying to break away from Wilderman, but Wilderman immediately going on the offensive here, knowing he needs to attack before Barrionuevo is able to get himself up to temperature. But James, it's been an interesting start to this race. The GT3s not having the happiest of starts, but to be fair, they're all going now, and well, everyone's going to be settling in for the ride.
Yep, and we've got 1 hour, Paul, so I mean, one incident definitely doesn't write off people's races, that's for sure. So yeah, the GTEs got away really well. So as we look further down the field, I think that there's probably a little bit more calm in the GTEs, knowing that they don't have the same level of assists, shall we say, as the GT3s, as we look to see. That looks to be like Diego Reiser that's gone around the outside there of Andrew Fellows, making his way up in P23. So yeah, some fantastic racing and some good starts for these guys as they go through the infield for the first time. I can see the leaders have gone through. We've got somebody just off there. It looks like one of the Axis cars has had a little bit of an off as Rob Mackay looks to try and make his way past. So that's Andre Muntean that's had a little bit of an incident. I mean, I think you've only got to just tip one of your wheels onto the grass through this section, and that could quite easily cause you to have a little bit of a spin. And of course, you've got a trailing train of cars behind you that are going to be all pushing on through. Yeah, very easy for an incident to happen. But so far, Paul, not too bad. Apart from that little incident in turn 1 on the GT3s.
Oh, 100%. And well, as our Axis SimSport tries to piece things back together, it's no peace there between Hayden Miller and Justin Noel. As Miller goes up the inside, they're retaking one of the places he lost. He lost a number of places at the start, did Hayden Miller. Got caught sleeping at the start compared to some of his rivals. I'm not sure if he was sleeping behind the wheel, to be fair. I suspect it may have just been in the concertina into turn number 1 and the subsequent aftermath. But that's him regaining 8th place in GTE. And we know he's got race-winning pace at the helm of that Phoenix racing machine. He's got to be able to unleash it, and that is the problem he finds himself with. But from our GTEs to our GT3s, Yanis Albert already one place up ahead of Pedro de Luis da Silva. He's chasing after Ale Torres as Will Humphrey, meanwhile, holding the field at bay at the moment as the leader, albeit they're all closing up to the back of Andre Muntean, who I think might be trying to nurse the wounds that he's got in his BMW M8 after his trip to the grass. But all these drivers making their way on through, and as they do, while top 3 definitely absconding GT3 at the moment, because then it's a sizable 1.5 second gap back to Pedro Luis da Silva, who's got Harvey Wheeler for close company as they all rattle their way up through the Snake Pass. But further back, Lucas Finco as well. I believe his first race of the season, at least that I've commentated on. And as he comes on through there, the Wrong Stuff Acura driver, the Acura NSX Evo, well, he gives chase to Brandon White, albeit it does seem as our GT3 field now starting to cool down a little bit. Although, as soon as I say that, it seems as though in our GTEs, James, somebody's had a trip to the grass there. But who is it in that Ford? Is that Rob Mackay?
Oh, I don't think I'm allowed to commentate on Rob Mackay having a spin or going off track, Paul. But yeah, it looks to be. So currently running P19 in that Ford GT. So Rob's obviously had an incident. I mean, coming up that straight where you turn right into the cones at turn 13 for the corner that we're not allowed to name, because we can't afford the swear box. But yeah, I mean, that can just if you miss your braking point coming up that kind of straight for those cones on the right hand side, that could quite easily catch a few drivers out. So Rob's obviously just had a bit of an incident there. I'm sure that we might be able to I'm sure that we ought to catch that a bit later on, as we see this looks to me like Hayden Miller that's going up the inside of Nick Stubbs. So Nick Stubbs having a good run here in 8th place as Hayden Miller goes past. So Hayden's now going to be looking to catch up to the back of Robin Noel Brown. So Hayden won't be racing, or won't have raced against Robin Noel Brown, I don't think, in the same split before. So he's going to be looking at the back of that car thinking, how the hell is this car going so fast? So yeah, Robin's having a really good run here in P6. And yeah, I just wonder if Hayden's had a bit of an incident there, Paul, because as you say, he's normally got kind of, race leading pace, shall we say. We've got Tim Perry ahead of Robin Noel Brown as well. So there's a name that we've not mentioned too much before from the Altitude 3M team. I don't think Tim has raced yet in the America's GT Challenge. I know he's raced in the Thursday GT3 Championship. I told you I'd get my names mixed up. But yeah, great to see Tim Perry back out and having a really good run. And we've got Justin Noel also having, I know that Justin also had pretty good pace at Mosport as well and got caught up in a couple of incidents. So currently running P11 behind Thomas Pugh. Again, Thomas Pugh in P10. I mean, these are all absolutely top-class drivers that on their day have got race-winning pace, as it looks like he's going to have a look up the inside of Thomas Pugh, which he doesn't get the job done. Thomas Pugh in that M8 giant BMW just manages to hold it off there. And right behind them, they've got Lewis Kenyon as well. So yeah, lovely little 3-car battle here. I don't imagine it's going to carry on through the the midfield, infield section, but certainly when they come out of this back onto the main straight, yeah, this is shaping up to be very, very tasty indeed.
Oh, 100%. And whilst they scrap over 10th place with Justin Knoll having a bit of a difficult run into Oak Tree and losing a couple of places for it, however, setting himself down, well, there we can see that Pugh just able to gradually break away with his BMW M8. But with that in mind, we need to take a look back at some of the incidents that happened earlier on in the race. And in fact, ladies and gentlemen, here's a replay of what happened right at the start for Jonas Larsson as he made his way in towards turn number 1. It was the GT3 field that had the calamity at the start. And while on the brake, and he got pinched, ping-ponged slightly off the side of the Axis SimSport 173, and well, then all the field had to stop or swarm around in there. And I think Larsson will feel as though it was a victim of circumstance, and a lot of the field would say the same. In terms of how that looked from the on-board here of what was Mikey's story for Biltong and Bangers as he made his way into that braking zone, once he came down to the brakes, what you'll see at first is it all continues together, and then suddenly, hold up, why are we all stopping? Oh, and he gets a bit of a prang on the backside, and thankfully that pushes him to the grass, and he's able to avoid getting caught up. But of course, drivers can't always see everything as they make their way into that braking zone, so they have to dissect what's happened at the time. We also had this happen a little bit later on in lap number 1. This was Francois Brandet. Well, in fact, this was at the same corner, so we're getting the same replay from a third angle now of Francois having to come onto the brakes. That was definitely how his race played out for that brief moment. And then this happened on lap number 2, coming to a bit more GTE focus for Andre Montine. And he made his way in towards turn 1. Turn 1 definitely proving to be a bit of a nightmare for many a driver. And well, Montine there went on the brakes. The rear of the BMW said no. And as a result, I think the rear brake locking up slightly and then releasing very quickly. And the rear of the car coming down like a pendulum. And well, this happened to Scott Kostrich, meanwhile, on lap number 1. And well, this was Scott in towards turn number 1 firstly. I think he's going to have quite a bit of woe today, James, because it all started off at turn 1 in the GT3, so he got caught up there, and then a little bit later on, I believe, well, in fact, it was not him, it was Rob Mackay I'm thinking of, who had the incident earlier on. But for Rob, he had a bit of a run to the grass, it didn't quite work out. I don't think we've caught that quite on replay, sadly, as we come back to our live racing. And well, we are the best part of 9 minutes in. We've still got plenty of time to go in this one. And well, there's plenty of action up and down the field, including right at the front, because in our GTEs, Barrionuevo right now not breaking away from Wildemont.
No, Francisco's he's been made to work for this, so Graham's keeping him in good company, and Michael Brooks is sitting in just behind. So they've just got a little bit of a gap there, a 1 second gap, or 2.3 second gap, sorry, on Tim Perry. So those three have broke away quite nicely, with Marius Hibmer just on the outskirts and P5. One thing that I was watching, Paul, while you were going through the replays, and this is going to be very, very interesting to see how this unfolds, is that we've got the leader of the GT3s, William Humphrey, who's actually coming up now against some of the slower GTE drivers. So I think this is something that we've not yet experienced, and you can see William flashing Rob Mackay there to say, "Come on, Rob, move it, get out of the way." So we've not really seen this on any of the tracks that we've been to so far, or certainly I've never seen it anyway, because I've been very, very fortunate enough not to get caught up in it. But yeah, so William has got right behind him, he's got Ali G. Torres and Yanis Albert, so these three really kind of keeping together. And now William's got that difficult decision to make as he comes up towards the back of these GTE cars of what looks to be, he's got Rob Mackay, he's got Nils Cooler, Samuel Clark, there's a whole train of them. And of course, the speed that these three leading GT3 drivers are going to have is going to be absolutely on par with the GTEs in front. So I'm not really sure how this is going to unfold in terms of strategy, and you know, whether or not we're going to see William or potentially Ali G. Torres or Yanis Albert dive in at the very earliest opportunity for a pit stop to try and prevent this. So yeah, your guess is as good as mine, Paul.
Oh, it's going to be an interesting challenge on the strategy, like you say, James. And if I had to place my money, I would think right now, out of these three, they're all going to be worried just as much about the fact they're going to lose time because of the GTEs in front, which they don't gain on the straights, they gain under cornering, of course, because of the way these cars are set up. The GT3s have a lot more aero to them, and they also have a lot of electronics. They have anti-lock braking systems, which GTEs do not. However, GTEs have the best part of 50 to 70 horsepower more on average, and also because they have a bit less aero, it means they've got less drag down the straights. But as Humphrey there trying to make his way around Dalton Hall in towards turn number 15. Well, there's no way for us. That is a big lock up and the braking from Rob Edgell there, who just about gets it stopped in time before he taps the rear of Jim Fox. Well, there is our first GT3 on the GTE pass, because that is Dalton Hall being made to go wide, and Yanis Albert, well, he wants to come through as well, as Hall's going to go too wide. That's not going to work, and Hall in the end decides to straight line the grass, makes his way for the segue, and well, the top three of our GT3s have found their way through, but Albert had to be a bit forceful there, James. I think Dalton will not be too happy about that, but understandably, Yanis thinking to himself, well, if they're allowed to get through, then why can't I get through?
Yeah, I got that totally wrong. I was looking at the wrong livery there, Paul. You're absolutely right. It was Dalton Hall. So Rob Mackay is going to be costing me later, saying, why was I saying that the GT3 leading drivers were right behind him? Because it wasn't actually him. So apologies to Rob. But yeah, the conundrum still remains. All three of them have got through. So yeah, that at least that's going to be the first kind of taste for them of knowing what it's like. Yanis has just dropped back off the back of Ali G there. So yeah, we'll just have to see. I don't think Yanis will be too concerned at this point, because there's a long race to go. So he'll be looking to work his way through. So yeah, certainly with those three, going to be a very interesting one to see how they're just going to navigate this traffic. But yeah, we're on board with Jim Fox there. So Jim's managing to complete his laps in P21. So Jim's putting in a reasonable performance. He's got Andrew Fellows just up the road. I know that Andrew said in the Discord that he didn't have a chance to do too much practice for tonight's round. So Andrew's just sitting inside the points there with P20, just a couple of seconds further down from Diego Reiser, who's right up with Rob Mackay, and then there's a big gap up to Nils Kooler. So yeah, certainly starting to spread out a bit, Paul, as we can see on the track map. But I think it's probably going to be another, I would say we'll be looking at another 20 minutes or so before we start seeing the leading GTEs that start to catch up the back of the GT3s.
Oh, 100%. And well, we do look here to Graham Wildemon, one of our leading GTEs, as we say hello there to Gisley McMatterson, who is one of the big fans of Graham there. And we're right now looking to try and find a way back as he looks to go on the hunt. Michael Brooks has fallen off of these top two. And in fact, Brooks does have a slowdown penalty, as we saw on the timing tower there, the little yellow flag indicating that he does have an automated penalty that he has to serve. Otherwise, it'll be upgraded to a black flag, or in other words, that is a drive-through penalty. But as he makes his way onwards, and well, right now Brooks will know that he's just made a small mistake, but it's cost him a little bit dear. He'll look to go on the attack as Wildemon here in the Ford GTE continues to watch the back of Barrionuevo and looks for a way in. Now, we also need to say hello to a few more of you in the YouTube chat there, including Deslin Van Gert, who's cheering on the Quatermass Motorsport drivers, of which we'll show you some of them a little bit later. Also to Phillips91, who's cheering on DXD. Also there, John, I believe that might be John LeBrook, cheering on the GPX team there in the YouTube chat. Also to Zakuria566, we've got the Samuel Clark fan group here, which is absolutely fantastic to see. Speaking of Samuel Clark, there he is for a brief moment, as that's a big dive up the inside on Robin Aston there from Martin Kenyon. Both of them go out deep, and as they both do, well, immediately Martin Kenyon there gives the place back. I think a lot of enthusiasm there in that Ferrari Tech GTE. But unfortunately, suddenly realising that the brakes can't quite be used like you would in a GT3 where you can lunge them. But to be fair to Martin, he wanted to go for it, gives the place back to Robin, and I think Robin will be very appreciative of that. Samuel Clark, meanwhile, picks up a 2-for-1 special there for Moonshiners Racing Club, so seizes an opportunity and moves into 14th of our GTE drivers, so he'll be very happy about that. But as he heads along, well, coming back to the strategic faults, James, I mean, if you're William Humphrey right now, as he squeezes his way up the inside there of Rob Edgell, and Ali Torres comes up for as well, and Yanis Albert again gets forced to go too wide here, and well, Edgell and Dalton Hall now going to have a little bit of an excursion. The two Ford GTs, they're wonderful to see the Fords together. If you are Yanis Albert at this point, firstly, you want to stay tucked onto the back of Humphrey and Torres, but I wonder whether these three are perhaps going to see, if there's no way to get past these GTs, whether they just literally lift off the throttle and fuel save as much as humanly possible to extend their stints. Because we have seen these GT3s, they normally can go a little bit deeper into the race compared to the GTs, based at least on Mosport. Daytona, of course, was a very different race because it's all slipstream orientated. But Mosport and here today at Virginia, I think we are going to see fuel saving could be just as valuable as outright pace.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen in the past, we saw in the European GT series that a lot of drivers, where they knew it was too difficult to get past, they would sit behind, lift off and fuel save. I'm not 100% certain that there's going to be a lot of fuel saving going on here, because I think what's happening here is that William is the driver that's managing to navigate his way through. You've then got Ale Torres that's just kind of able to pick the pockets and just follow him through. And I kind of feel a little bit sorry for Yanis Albert in all this, because the GTE drivers that they're coming up against are having their own battle as well. So they can't be expected to just move over. They're not a lap down, so these guys are on the same lap as them. And yeah, you can see it now. So as we're on board with Ale Torres, William just can't find a way through. And of course, when you get to this stage, Yanis Albert is probably caught up to the back of Ale Torres, although it looks like actually he's just dropped off a couple of seconds. So that might be the traffic effect that we've got there. But yeah, so William trying to get his way through. And by the time these two drivers have got through, poor old Yanis has just, the GTEs have had to close the door and carry on about their lap. And it's certainly not been as quick and as easy for him. So yeah, if I was William Humphrey right now, I'd be looking to dive in the pits as soon as possible. But I guess wherever he comes out on track, he's probably going to be faced with exactly the same conundrum. Although there does look to be a few gaps out on track. So yeah, who knows, Paul? Who knows? One driver that I just wanted to give a little bit of a shout out to, who's having a fantastic run in P13 in the GTEs, is Pete Paver. So Pete Paver is having a great run here. So he's got a nice little gap in front of him. He's got a nice little gap behind him. He's a great supporter of what was the ESR series and now the SRI series from the LS Racing team. So yeah, big shout out to Pete, running P13, having a fantastic run out in his Porsche RSR. So I think that he'll be really, really pleased with this one, Paul. And if he can bring that home somewhere around P13, maybe P12, yeah, very, very good outing for him.
Oh, 100%. And coming from Pete Paver and the pursuing Samuel Clark and Robin Aston, we need to come back to Rob Edgell and Dalton Hall, because as we went to cut away from them, it was getting very, very squeamish between these two GTE drivers, plus also Yanis Albert, Ale Torres and William Humphrey. And in fact, I think Jesse Pulakainen has actually had an off of the circuit as a result. So they were all practically queuing up, and while the queuing continues as Martin Kenyon there finds out the two wide coming out of turn number 13. Well, in the end, they managed to squeeze the way through, but Albert right now ready being dropped. Hold up a second, who's that? Disappeared off into the weeds. That is Jim Fox, who's going downhill, albeit he'll gradually rejoin the circuit. He'll make sure the car doesn't slide completely away from him as the Patriot Course there starts to claim more drivers, but Fox runs out wide, and it all began coming through what was left hook in towards the Snake. And well, how exactly did that start? We take a look back, because this was Jesse Pulakainen coming into a bit of a rear. So we saw the GTEs making their way through. In fact, that was down to Oak Tree Corner, and Pulakainen was queuing up behind Torres. Tapped on, oh, that's a big whack, and that was a hit from the behind by Yanis Albert, and Pulakainen in the end being sent to the grass and having to wait to rejoin. But that's what happens when you do have these two classes all coming together, and differences in strengths and weaknesses, and some very fast GT3 drivers out there. And well, understandably, as Yanis Albert is into the pit lane, he's decided to get himself out of the running order. And in all of this, James, I think it's all now kicking off, because we've got a couple of drivers in the pits, and Robin Noel Brown's been in some sort of incident, because well, at least I'm here and he's in the pit lane.
Yeah, that was just I was just trying to take that on board. I mean, that was really, really unfortunate. We all know what a fantastic driver Yanis Albert is, so there's absolutely no intent there whatsoever. It probably was the case that the driver in front was being taking extra precaution. And obviously the two things coming together of Yanis trying to catch up with his rivals and the other driver taking precaution because he was being overtaken, yeah, just didn't work out well for him at all. So I imagine that Yanis has come in the pits to exercise his fast repair, because everybody gets, I think, if I remember correctly, 2 fast repairs.
Yep.
So Yanis will be looking to get that car back to full spec, which I'm looking on my other screen now, and he seems to have got that exactly where it needs to be. So he's going to have done his pit stop, and he will be now trying to work his way through that traffic as he gets back up through the field. So not ideal for Yanis. Didn't see what happened to Robin Noel Brown, but yeah, he's also taken the opportunity to jump back in the pits as well. So he's got his pit stop out of the way early. So they've just got to hope that they don't get into any kind of trouble later on and work their way through the traffic and the gaps. But certainly, 38 minutes to go, Paul. I'd like to say things have settled down a little bit, which gives us chance, obviously, to go up and, up and down the field and and kind of show some different drivers, as we've got Robin Powney here from the Sim Coach team. So Robin's having a good run here in P10. Looks like he's got Reece Saunders right in front of him. So Reece has made up quite a few places as well. So as he's got familiar with the track in that altitude 3M BMW, he's worked his way through quite nicely. I don't remember exactly where Reece Saunders started. I think it was about P14, 15, something like that.
That's spot on.
So yeah, Reece is having a good run out. It's probably straightforward when you start learning the track, and you've got natural braking markers in front of you, being the other cars, of course. Although Reece is blinking in and out a little bit, so hopefully there's no connection issue there. But yeah, good run from Reece, and fingers crossed that he manages to keep this up, because he also had a difficult time out at Mosport as well. So yeah, fingers crossed for Reece that he could bring this one home.
100%. We look forward to seeing what he can do as the race goes on. Because like you say, at Mosport, he had all the pace, he put it on pole, but it all went backwards over the race distance. As a flash of lights there from Reece Saunders, I think trying to get into the head of Wesley Van Rens, but Van Rens does not fall for it. He just takes his time there in the 9 Pegasus Panthera car, and who can blame him? He knows he's got the right to be on the circuit as much as anybody else. And if he wants to fight for the 8th place in GT3, well, all the better for it, I say. But as he roars his way through NASCAR Bend, right now holding his line a bit further back, we do look to none other than what is Mikey Story here. And Story gets a pit stop, but the RSA Esports driver here making his way on through as he does release Martin Kenyon up his inside. Kenyon here trying to get on through, but that's the difference in braking between a GT3 and a GTE. The Lamborghini Huracan there being a GT3. ABS, it means you can be a lot late on the brakes compared to a GT, where the braking zones are normally, depending on the speed you're braking from, they are normally somewhere between 20 to 50 metres longer, the distance is. And well, that's going to be straight line speed there. The two of them going too wide up the hill. That's brave. Oh, goodness me. I'm absolutely holding myself back in my chair right now, James. But in the end, Martin Kenyon does squeeze his way through. Great respectful racing from both of the drivers there. They're not fighting over anything other than track position, but they're showing the strengths and weaknesses of a GT and a GT3 together, and that's a treat to see.
Yeah, well, I do know a little story about Mikey Story's livery. So Mikey Story's actually reserving for Justin Eloff tonight from the Bilton and Bangers team, and Justin actually sent Mikey the wrong livery. He sent him his Thursday GT3 livery where he drives for RDSA instead of the Bilton and Bangers. So he did send me a message beforehand saying apologies that Mikey will be running the wrong livery if it confuses you and Paul as to which team he's in. But yeah, Mikey's a quick driver as well. Martin there clearly just kind of stretching his legs a little bit, you know, showing the muscle of the GTE. But yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting matchup, Paul, because where we did the European GT series and you'd got such a massive pace difference between the GT3s and the GT4s, it was, you know, it often caused incidents as drivers were trying to overtake each other, and the massive difference in corner speed, whereas actually the GT3s and the GTEs, depending on the drivers that are driving them, of course, you know, the gap between them is nowhere near as big. As we see a driver there going off, which is Rob Edgell, just manages to bring it to a standstill before he goes into those tyres, so he'll be quite pleased that he's not caused any damage there. Very unfortunate for Rob there, but yeah, I think it's showing on this track more so than maybe it will on some of the others coming up that we've got, is that pace differential between the two, depending on the driver, is very, very close.
Oh, 100%. And will Rob Edgell there, and also Andrew Fellows, to be fair, both having offs through turns 1 through to 5. And, well, in the end, Edgell having a few more by comparison. But both drivers there just find out what happens when you dip a tyre slightly onto the grass here at VIR. And one of the interesting things about the circuit as well, if you look to the grass around it, ladies and gents, what you'll find, and don't worry, we're not going to be going into the nature channel today and telling you about every blade of glass that is here. That's not what we're here for. We're here for motorsport. But the one thing that is interesting is the fact the grass slopes away from the tarmac at most points. So when you go off, a lot of circuits, you go off on the grass and you naturally will very quickly find yourself going back onto the tarmac. Here, you very quickly find yourself drifting away from the tarmac, and it's about stopping yourself before you go too far away. Most notably, the exit of turn number 1, whereby, or in fact, if you just go off at turn number 1, you'll find you'll be going towards the tree line very quickly, because it is completely downhill at that point, and it is not a shallow gradient either. It is quite a high percentage, and that will be in the mind's eye drivers. You dip a tyre outside of turn number 1, as Andrew Fellows almost demonstrated at the start of his lap. you'll suddenly find yourself very quickly spending the best part of 20-30 seconds having to get yourself back on track. But getting ourselves back on track to the fighting on circuit, well, our lead battles have calmed down for a brief moment, and there has been a bit of spread of the field, but Pedro Luis da Silva, meanwhile, holding on to third in GT3 here, James, and he has got Harvey Wheeler right behind him. It's the battle of two McLarens. Ali Torres, meanwhile, is a bit further up the road, but these two right now fighting over the final GT3 podium spot.
Yeah, these two are really, really closely matched, Paul, as well. So we've seen it in the first 2 rounds. We've seen it in the pre-season race that Harvey and Pedro, there's absolutely nothing between them. They're both in the same car as well. Both very, very, very clean and respectful drivers. They did have a little bit of an incident at Daytona on the last lap, and yeah, incredibly apologetic in the steward's ticket, which was fantastic to see. And Pedro is an absolute gentleman. So yeah, it's really good to see these two battling in the same car, same machinery. Obviously, I'm going to be a bit of subconscious bias towards Pedro getting the result this time out because he is my teammate. And he's a lone ranger because unfortunately we've got Mr. Robin Noel Brown that looks like he's had a massive repair job in the pits. So true to form, just destroying my GTE for next 2 weeks time. But yeah, so Pedro's kind of pedaling on his own now. So yeah, good battle between these two and not a lot between them. So we'll keep an eye on where that goes. While you were on last, Paul, we did have an incident for Lucas Finco, unfortunately, in the GT3s. So Lucas had a little bit of an off track that sent him down and lost him about 6 or 7 positions, unfortunately. So Lucas is going to be having to work. He's now down in P18, so he's going to be having to work quite hard to get back through the field and catch up that gap that he lost. And it was one of those incidents where he kind of went across the grass, and then the nature of this sweeping track just kind of took him all the way across the grass. Did a bit of lawn mowing for the circuit organisers, and yeah, it's just lost the rear there as he came in and went all the way across the grass. Luckily, held the brakes and got it stopped before he went across the other side. So, and then of course he's got to go all the way back across the grass. He's got to go all the way back across to rejoin in the same position. So yeah, really, really unfortunate there for Lucas, and a bit of a job for him to do to work his way back up.
Oh, that's a tough one, but to be fair, handled it well and taking it in his stride, and that's what it's all about. It's not about how you start these races, it's about how you finish them as we make our way towards the very halfway point. But as he rolls his way on around, and we do say hello there to both Jonathan Humphrey, who's cheering on none other than William Humphrey. He's here on your live pictures, ladies and gentlemen. And we'll say hello to Ryan Racing, who's cheering on Marius, William and Yanis. Well, it's great to see so many of you there cheering on and showing your support for all of the different drivers up and down the running order. But we are now starting to inch our way more in towards the strategy window. We are seeing a couple of pit stops, albeit that's not a pit stop at Oak Tree Bend. That is a spin for Nick Stubb. He's had that go around on him as the Glass Tetra Racing driver. That will not be a happy incident there. That's demoted him from, at the time, what was 9th place in GTE. He's missed a front bumper as well. I suspect he's been in a bit of contact with somebody, and in fact we're going to be able to get an immediate replay to explain what has happened here to Nick Stubb. So what exactly went wrong for the Ford GT driver? Comes out the corner in towards Oak Tree Bend. He's by himself, so this might be self-inflicted. Yes, it is. The rear of the car lets go, and he gets slightly pranged there by Pete Piver's GTE by looks of things. Although, in fact, I'm going to correct myself. That was not Pete Piver that pranged him on the front bumper. I'm not quite sure who that was, but it was one of the LS Racing cars, and that's where Nick Stubb is now, minus a front bumper after his spin, and just a slight tap there, and it's completely come loose. So not a happy moment for Nick Stubb. But what I was trying to say, ladies and gentlemen, and I think, James, it's something we need to talk a little bit more about now, is at the halfway point of this race, we're seeing some pit stops play out, but the leaders in our classes, or at least the top 10 in each of our classes, they're not showing any signs of wanting to come into the pits at the moment.
No, they're not, Paul. They're not. And the leading driver that's actually done a pit stop is Matthew Bacon down in overall P27, who is currently running in P21 in the GTE class. So Matthew is the first driver that has pitted. Now, I don't know whether that's a damage repair at the beginning or a fuel stop. So that'll be one for us to keep our eye on. But no, I mean, I think there's no real reason for them to pit at this moment unless they're being held up in traffic. And I think the drivers that we were kind of looking at originally that were getting held up the most were the leader of William Humphrey and Ali Torres in the GT3s, and they've now got themselves a little bit of clear air. So I think they'll probably keep that going in clear air as long as they can, and then pit as late as they can to minimise that pit stop time. And obviously they're saving up that fast repair just in case anything happens, because whilst they may keep their own race under perfect control, it's difficult to say if there's going to be an incident right in front of us. As we're talking about pit stops, we've got Harvey Wheeler actually into the pits now. So he was following Pedro Luis da Silva in that McLaren battle, and Harvey has been the first to make the call. So is that undercut going to work for Harvey? We will see when Pedro Luis da Silva comes back out the pits. So yeah, it's about that time, Paul, between now and probably the next 10 or 15 minutes where we are going to start to see all the pit stop action. And this is the bit where Dara's really good, because he has his little pad and his little abacus ready, and he knows exactly who's going to come out where. So yeah, I'm going to be relying on you for that bit, I'm afraid.
Oh, that's absolutely fair. Well, as our two leaders continue to give chase, that is a very late lunge up the inside there in towards none other than roller coaster corner of what is Hayden Miller versus Marius Hibmer. So Miller still trying to carve his way through the field. And as we ride on board here, he's going to look at the move to the inside. He's not going to get it. Meanwhile, it's now going to be around the outside here, as Marius Hibmer says, you're going to have to go the long way round, Hayden. And Hayden says, OK, I'll try it. But onto the brakes they goes, leaving the pit lanes while the Ellis racing cars, albeit the two drivers here, they're not going to stop fighting each other even if somebody does leave the pit lane. Miller looking around the inside now, coming out to turn number one, and as he does so, Hibner just proving to be absolutely wide and absolutely fair in doing so. It's a squeeze the apex. There's going to be a tap between the two. They just about survive it there. This is getting very close racing between these two as they roll the way through. We jump back on board with Hayden Miller for Felix Racing Blue, who after looking for the move into turns 1 and 4 hasn't quite worked out at the moment. He's going to have another run at this now. This Corvette is absolutely flying as they make their way out the snake. Well, surely he's not going to go all the way side by side through here. If he does, that's going to be very brave. And I think Hibner's going to say to him, you're not making that happen. And Miller backs off here for the moment as they head down for the left-hander at turn 9 and in towards Oak Tree Bend. But does he go for lunge? No, he does not. He just waits, watches, and looks for the next opportunity. Thankfully, now he's got a long stretch of road. And whilst that BMW is normally very quick, it is the only front-engine rear-wheel drive drivetrain GTE here. All the others mid-engine rear-wheel drive. Well, right now, you can see that Hayden Miller in the tow. Hibner weaving left and right. Don't worry, ladies and gentlemen. He has not had anything to drink before this other than water or his preferred non-alcoholic beverage. He's just trying to break the tow. But in doing so, in fact, actually caused himself to outbrake in towards turn number 13. Miller now close, not close enough, and I don't think James is going to have an opportunity here to look for a move until we probably get back to roller coaster, because it's very tight through here, and I can imagine that BMW M8, it is a big car, and we always jokingly refer to it as the Giga BMW and the memes that follow it, but Hibner is definitely making that BMW incredibly wide.
Yeah, I think kind of knowing a little, I don't know too much, but knowing a little bit about these two guys and how well and evenly matched they are. I mean, looking at their I ratings, they're only 80 I rating difference between the two. Both 4K I rating drivers. Both were quite early to say, yeah, we're definitely going to be running the GTE. Couldn't wait to get behind the wheel. I know that Marius loves the GTE. He races in, I think, 1 if not 2 other leagues in the GTE. And Hayden Miller, really, really quick driver. Yeah, I imagine that these are really enjoying this battle, and that's probably what the weaving's all about. They've got exactly the same pace. They probably, I say Hayden probably can't safely get past without a big send, so instead he's just trying to apply a little bit of pressure to Marius. Marius is soaking up that pressure and saying, yeah, absolutely no problem, Hayden, because I'm in the widest car possible and I'll just take it all in my stride. Although he does now have some, I think, what looks to be 3 GT3 cars that Marius is coming up against. So, yeah, is this going to be the moment for Hayden to kind of wait for Marius to make a move or kind of make a feint and then not go, and then all of a sudden he's going to sneak through? Yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
Oh, that's a good point there. The traffic now will really cause these two to bunch up, and Marius Hibben's immediately going to go up the inside there. That's number 22. He tucks up the inside of through the corner, so that's going to be a move made there on Chris Jennings. And, well, with that, Hayden Miller says, OK, I'll come through with you. And I think at this point, Hibben's going to go blast. That hasn't quite worked out, as somebody has had a bit of a moment there on the grass. That is Robin Noel Brown, whose race goes from good to bad to worse, as he just rejoins there, albeit a lap down now of the GTEs. But that's going to give him a little bit of breathing room, because there I think Hayden Miller decided to back off just a bit of precaution. But in towards turn number 13, this is where we see that BMW really struggle under braking. It has the weakest brakes of the GTEs compared to its rivals. And right now, Hibner finds himself caught right up behind a Axis SimSport machine. That's going to be the Mercedes AMG, the number 19 of none other than Ashley Brooks. He's got to try and find his way through, but snaking there under braking in towards turn number 16. The rear of that BMW is so unsettled to give it direction change. But the problem is, at these low speeds, particularly when he's going even slower than he'd like to through the corner, he has not got any rear end grip, and that is causing the car to twitch as he does so, coming all the way in towards roller coaster bend. And right now, the number 94, every which way that car's going, but it's still pointing straight as well. Takes a quick look up the inside. Let's give it a tap to the rear. It sends the 19 of Brooks round. Brooks able to get back together, but Hibner's patience running out there. I don't think he meant it, but it is going to cause some damage to the car. And I think now Hayden Miller's going to be thinking to himself, James, all right, I know he's unsettled, and I can potentially look to take advantage of this.
Wow. That's going to be one very unhappy Ashley Brooks. That's for sure. So, yeah, Ashley was just holding his line and doing his thing all the way through there. And, yeah, the difference in overspeed there from Marius just gave him a little bit of nudge at the worst possible time, as the weight of the car transfers to the front, nothing on the rear, and Marius gives him a little tap and spins him round. So Ashley will not be pleased with that at all, but Ashley's raced for long enough. He knows the drill, he knows what it's like. People don't do these things intentionally. So yes, unfortunate way to get through, but Marius is through and Hayden is still following. So the battle goes on. I think they've now got Jonas Larsson in front of them in the Mustang. So Marius is probably going to make easy work of Jonas Larsson, because Jonas Larsson's got a little bit of a gap now, so he's got nothing massive to defend against. So yeah, Marius is through. Hayden's probably going to come through here into Oak Tree on the inside. Battle recommences. Just give Hayden time to catch back up, and then yeah, it's probably all going to be down to the pit stops for these two guys, Paul.
100%. Well, speaking of pit stops, here's your overall leader of GT's yet to pit. That's Francisco Barrionuevo, and the Enosis esports driver right now finds a bit of traffic out there. But some of you might be sat wondering, well, where is Graham Wilderman for Soy Boys Racing? And well, he has pitted. He's decided to pull the trigger first, as there you can see that Barrionuevo getting caught up behind our Mercedes driver there of none other than, as his name does escape me, James, I'm sure you'll have his name to hand on Mercedes runner.
Bobby Moss.
Bobby Moss, there we go. I was about to say Sir Sterling Moss for some reason. I was almost right, but he's doing a sterling job.
No, Bobby's quicker.
Oh, brilliant. Fair play. Well, as Barrionuevo makes his way through, as for where Wilderman has come out in all of this, well, he's in 8th place at the moment, but he has not got a clear track in front of him either. But the difference is he's primarily got GTEs in front of him, minus 1 or 2 GT3s that seem to be stirring up the pot. So for Wilderman, this is an opportunity to potentially gain some lap time versus Barrionuevo, and Michael Brooks was only 3 seconds behind it all. It's going to be intriguing to see where they all fit together, and we are waiting to see how all these pit stops slot in at the very end. We do still have 20 minutes of this race to go. It definitely has been a very on-edge race all so far, but our leaders in GT right now, Barrionuevo versus Wilderman. Can Wilderman make a win of it at the 3rd time of trying? We will see what he's able to do. As into the pits comes one of the drivers, and that is going to be Justin Noel, who decides he doesn't want to play games anymore. He wants to take a higher step, and he wants to leave the racing circuit. But further back, Rob Mackay there, and Matthew Bacon, and Mackay goes to the grass briefly for a brief moment, as Bacon goes up the inside of him into turn number 13, and that's been Bacon up into 18th place of the GTs at the moment, as Bacon has pitted, and we believe that pit stop was for repair work on lap number 2. Big lock up there from Jim Fox. Oh, goodness me, James, it's all happening here. And Matthew Bacon's going to get 1, he's going to get 2, and he's going to get the whole set of 3 here in the infield, because he makes his way into 17th place ahead of Fox, Mackay and Edgell.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Paul. That was an early pit stop on lap 2. It was a quick pit stop as well, with a pit time of only 5 seconds. So Matthew will have to pit again. So just while you were talking there about the lead of the GTEs between Francisco Barrionuevo and Graham Wildman. So Graham Wildman's pit time was 37 seconds in total, and it looks like he's only 32 seconds behind. So potentially, depending on the fuel level that they both started with and how much they needed to take on board, we could potentially see Graham Wildman jump Francisco Barrionuevo in the pit stops. So if Francisco Barrionuevo has the same pit length time, then by my reckoning Graham Wildman will come out about 4 seconds ahead. So that all depends on, of course, how long Francisco's going to be in the pits for. But yeah, it certainly makes the end of this race really, really interesting, Paul.
Oh, 100%. And speaking of intrigue, we are now at maximum intrigue, because that's Reece Saunders we briefly saw in the camera leading the GT3s. He's yet to pit, but your GT3 leader pre-pit stop was William Humphrey, and he is still leading out of the pit stoppers after his pit stop. He's come back out ahead of Ale Torres, and he's ahead by 3 seconds. So right now, the Grazing Good racing driver seems to be on course for what will be his maiden victory here at VIR, and he'll be very happy about it as he roars his way onwards. Indeed, his maiden victory of the season. It'll definitely break the dominance that Ale Torres has had, as Torres continues to chase 3 seconds behind. There you can see him. Then you do see a Ford Mustang a bit further back, and that is the machine or not John Malnerich there, that is Francois Brandet, who is making his way on through, albeit a lap down at this point. But as these drivers continue on through, it is going to be this locked-in battle between the top two of the GT3s. Pedro Luis de Silva, meanwhile, a lot further back and spent a lot more time in the pits by comparison. But speaking of more pit stops, we've now got Hayden Miller making his way through the pit lane and onto the pit exit. But where is Graham Wildman? He's already clear. In fact, Miller has come all the way out in 6th place, James. I don't know what's happened here. Nick Stubbs right behind him, minus the front bumper still. I don't know how Nick's driving that car with the amount of drag on it, but still, he's found a magical way to do it. But Hayden Miller has come back out, and it looks like 6th place is where he's returned, but nowhere near where he wants to be. Meanwhile, we actually have to cut that fault, because at the front of the field, Barrionuevo has come out ahead of Wildman, albeit by very little. 3/10 is the gap.
Yeah, so he obviously didn't need to take on as much fuel as Graham did, so Graham would have fueled lighter for the start of the race. But yeah, hasn't this come out fantastic now between these guys, as Graham Wildman, as they've got Andrew Fellows also in front of him. So Andrew's going to be thinking, oh my goodness, I've only come for a casual Sunday race, and these two are just going to absolutely put him into next week if he don't get out of the way. So here we go, as we've got Francisco is flashing the lights. Andrew will see them coming. He will know that he's lapped down. Really astute driver is Andrew. He knows the score. So yeah, this is going to be a battle that runs all the way to the end between these two, and I can't help but feel, Paul, that this is going to come down to traffic and actually who they come up against and who navigates the traffic better out of the two of them. We've got a 2.6 second gap back to Michael Brooks, so that looks like it could be a bit too big to bridge for Michael, but great run for him in P3. So yeah, it's really, really good to see that the battle for the lead, 3/10 after 44 minutes of racing and a pit stop on a track with 54, 55 cars, and we're still at the 3/10 gap. Absolutely amazing. And one thing I did notice, Paul, hold the phone, we've lost Yannis Albert.
We have.
So the championship return of Yannis Albert is we have lost Yannis Albert, and we've got Pedro Luis de Silva, who is currently running in P3, who's a couple of seconds ahead of Harvey Wheeler. So yeah, Yannis has obviously had an incident somewhere. Apologies to everybody that we missed that. I don't know kind of what's happened, whether it's a technical glitch or something to do with connectivity. But what started out as a battle of 3 has now ended up a battle of 2, and we've got Pedro Luis de Silva just holding that 3rd place.
Well, that's a good spot, James. In fact, we can cut to a replay of what happened to Yannis Albert. This was on lap number 15, so the best part of about 10 minutes ago. And well, what exactly happened? It was into turn 3, a little bit of a tap there. Tried to go all the way around the outside NASCAR bend, put 2 wheels on the grass and just slid to the barrier there. And well, for Yannis Albert, that was bravery, gone a bit too far. And very unfortunate there because he's had to tow to the pit and the car in a state of disrepair. So Yanis knew he was up against the clock because he did go for that early pit stop compared to his rivals, but the gamble did not pay off in the end. As we come back to your live race, and as we do, well, we're going to have to go from GT3 faults to GT faults because Graham Waldemont are very close again here as they come into Oak Tree. And absolutely correct on, absolutely bang on, James, the fact it's going to come down to traffic, and Francisco Barrionuevo right now, he's got to try and bulldoze his way through here, but this is not going to be easy. They're both going to be on the outside heading up towards turn number 13, and well, Barrionuevo here's got to try and cut his way past Wesley Van Rens as well, and Wildemont has got to try and follow him on through. I don't envy either of them right now.
Just thinking, it looks like Graham. Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether I'd want to be at the front trying to work my way through, or I don't know whether I'd want to be in Graham's position, just kind of waiting for that opportunity to. Because it is going to present itself as he looks to go, or he has a little sneaky look up at the inside. I wonder if this is a little bit of psychological pressure that Graham's applying here. But fantastic driving from these two, really, really is. To be racing this long and only 2/10 in it, what a fantastic race. But yeah, I don't know, would I prefer to be out front and kind of the first one through, or would I prefer to sat behind? I'm not sure. There's probably not a lot in it, to be fair. I'm just looking at where they are on track at the moment. All the cars are spread out equally. So in the next 12 minutes, Paul, they are going to come across more traffic. So I think it's going to come down to who can navigate that traffic the best. Is probably going to try and seize the opportunity, whether it's Francisco that manages to gap Graham a little bit due to Graham getting caught up, or vice versa. Graham sees the opportunity and tries to sneak on through.
Oh, it's definitely going to be one of the big stories of today, if not the championship, this battle. Michael Brooks in third. We give a shout out there to Ken C, who's cheering on Brooksy and the Wrong Stuff team. And right now, Brooks, if he can get a bit closer, he could get involved, albeit he is falling away from this. He is now 4.5 seconds back, and he has Tim Perry approaching him. So we'll keep an eye on that. Speaking of eyes on things, well, Marius Hibner and Hayden Miller battling it once again, and Miller has caught back up to the BMW M8 driver as they head out to turn 3 into 4. That's a look up the inside, and the camera would make you think he was lunging all the way in, but unfortunately Hayden Miller only affording a second class stamp that time and not quite able to go for the lunge of the century there. And remember, lunges in GTEs are a lot harder because you don't have ABS, so therefore you have got to modulate the brake, otherwise you will lock up those front brakes and you very quickly turn from a car in towards a torpedo. And nobody wants to become the Daniel Kvyat of GTE racing here as they come charging over the crest and down for turn number 10. But Miller right now, as much as he's huffing and puffing behind Marius Hibner, is not able to find a way through at the moment. The BMW just proving to be a bit of a nuisance, and we know this BMW, what it lacks in the corners on the brakes, it makes up for on the straights. But Miller here, he has shown time and time again that he's aware of what the BMW can do, and he will breathe so close to the back of that BMW to pick up all the draft and equalise at straight line speed. So into turn 13 they come. Around the outside, can he make it happen? No, he can't. Oh, goodness me, that's a graveyard of cars in front as the seas part. That's Michael Brooks, who's been caught up in some sort of incident, and Hayden Miller does get on through. He sweeps around the outside then into the spiral, and Hibner has to wait. We've got another car off there. I think it's drama for the Wrong Stuff, because that's both of their drivers off in the space of the infield section, James. Goodness me, what on earth has happened there?
Don't know, Paul, but I have got a confession to make. I did just go on board with Joe Glass, because I thought we've not mentioned Joe Glass all night, and whilst I was on board with Joe Glass, 2 incidents occurred right in front of him, and he ended up somehow involved in both. So I don't know whether that's iRacing's commentators' coincidence or not. So yeah, there were a couple of incidents unfolded there, just right in front of Joe. Joe's currently running in P14 in class, and he has pitted twice. So I think Joe was involved in one of those earlier incidents. So yeah, there was a couple of bits that unfolded there. From what I could see, it just looked like one incident that the drivers were following so closely behind, it just couldn't be. They didn't really have a choice, and they couldn't do anything different. But yeah, big disappointment for those involved in that. It's interesting to see that Marius Hibner and Hayden Miller actually came up back against Ashley Brooks again, and Ashley Brooks just decided to let them go straight past that time on the second time. So yeah, there's still quite close there. So we've got Marius currently running in P4. just trying to get a gauge of where we are there. So Marius and Hayden has gone up in, sorry, Marius running in P5. There's a little delay on the timing screen there. So yeah, Hayden has managed to work his way through, and he's got past Marius, and he's got a car in between them, which looks to be the number 22 of Chris Jennings. So yeah, I'm not quite sure what happened there. Missed that one, Paul. So yeah, but it looks like now Marius is really putting on the pressure as he slides that BMW round Oak Tree. Yeah, his nemesis Hayden Miller's just actually got in away, and my goodness me, I'll let you take this. This is for the lead.
This is for lead indeed, and Graham Wilderman tries to make it happen through the spiral. They go too wide, looking around the outside. A mistake from Barrionuevo coming through turn number 13, and well, that corner proving to be, here comes the swear jar, ladies and gentlemen, an absolute bitch, and as a result, well, Wilderman missing out just about as they roar the way on through. He's absolutely attacking Barrionuevo, and all he needed was one mistake from Barrionuevo, and Wilderman is right there with him. But can he find a way to get into lead? That is the problem right now, and the answer is he just doesn't seem to be able to find the final 5% to get this done. That's the closest he's been all race to be side by side through the infield, and Barrionuevo was never going to let that inside line go, but that was absolutely sensational between the two of them. I don't think it's over yet, but they absolutely gave it everything, and we're going to get a replay of that moment as we take a look back. And well, it all started into the braking zone here, and what you're going to see, Barrionuevo goes very deep, almost goes to the grass. In fact, the rear left tyre catches the grass. Woodwan gets a nose ahead, but on the exit, he finds himself on the outside, and Barrionuevo gives himself a lifeline here. He knows he can force it into the spiral. He does so, but here they would have absolutely halved their natural apex speed, and we held that inside all the way through. Phenomenal driving between the two of them, and the rest, well, comes back to our live racing here, James. I mean, 7 minutes to go. That was incredibly close there, and well, Barrionuevo right now demonstrating when he's not leading the race by a comfortable margin, he's not afraid to get right in the thick of it.
Yeah, and I think that just kind of shows how hungry he is for the win, Paul, because, you know, some would have said, well, you could have just sat behind and then regathered yourself and tried to go again, but absolutely no chance. Francisco was, you're not having this, and that's it, and he put it straight back on him. So yeah, they're coming up now against the 1-2-3 car. I'm not exactly sure who this is. Oh, that's Robin Pownier in the Sim Coach GT3 car. So there is going to be a little bit of an opportunity for Graham, depending on when Francisco actually gets onto the back of Robin Pownier's car. But yes, 6 minutes to go and only 3/10. I imagine that, I mean, that was fantastic, respectful driving. They both gave each other loads of space all the way through. A real kind of lesson for everybody, really, on how to leave space and have those wheel-to-wheel battles. But yeah, 3/10 between these drivers on a track like this, 50-odd cars, 54 minutes of racing, and there's absolutely nothing to split these guys. And I imagine that if you're Robin Pownier right now, he's going to be thinking, just like, oh, there's an incident. Oh, there's an incident.
Oh, well, the two of them had coming together, and well, I think that's where Barrionuevo in the end got so close to the back of Pownier, but look at that from Wildon, immediately gives the place back, backs off. That's going to bring Tim Perry right onto the back of this. That's great gentlemanly racing there. Oh, I think Barrionuevo immediately went, wait, is he waiting for me? Right, let's go racing again. I think he was fuming, and then Sonny decided, calm on down, but now it's a freeway fight, 5 minutes to go. You couldn't make this up. It's great respect out there from our GTE leaders. Tim Perry's probably thinking this and thinking to himself, hold up a second, I'm now in for the run of the lead as well, but here comes Wilderman once again. He wants to do it the right way. He doesn't want to get it through contact unless it's rubbing door to door, and Francisco Barrionuevo, it's reset, but he goes deep. He goes way too deep, and that's going to lose him the lead. Is it going to lose him second place? Tim Perry looks all the way around the outside, but Barrionuevo absolutely seals the door shut, and it's a very rare mistake, James, for Barrionuevo, but he's made two in the space of one race. You could say that the first one of his own volition, perhaps the second one is due to a little bit of the damage he picked up from that prang, but right now Graham Woodwan takes the lead this race, and well, he's tried to do it as fairly as possible despite it all, as Tim Perry now gives chase for second.
Yeah, Paul, and I don't mean to put even more stress on you, is that we've got Ali Torres right on the back of William Humphrey in the GT3, so he was about 2.5 seconds behind William, and all of a sudden, I don't think William's had an incident. I think Ali Torres has just put the pressure on massively and put the hammer down, and he is right behind him. So I don't know how we're going to keep in touch with two different battles going on at exactly the same time, but there's absolutely nothing in it between these two as well. And I've been just keeping a slow eye on Ali Torres as he's worked his way back up to the back of William. So I mean, William will be feeling the pressure now, because when somebody closes that gap, and you see that gap coming down from kind of 2 seconds, 1.5 seconds, a second, and then under a second, William's going to know that Ali's got the pace. You know, again, it's just going to be, is he going to be able to get the pass made cleanly and safely? And he's got 3 minutes, so that's probably, what's that going to give us, Paul? 2 more laps, this one and one other?
I think so. You're absolutely spot on there. It's a good point, James. We'll do everything we can to cover the 2 lead battles, but last lap from Ali Torres was a 2:24.62. Humphrey, a 2:25.15. Before that, it was a 2:24.2 for Torres versus a 2:24.9 for Humphrey. What that means, ladies and gentlemen, in layman's terms, Ali Torres has stripped 7 tenths on average a lap over the last 3 laps off of William Humphrey, and that's how they've come together. It's absolutely staggering, and for all the pace that Humphrey has had in the early and mid stages, Ali Torres now has decided to deploy plan B, which is to be absolutely blazing quick, it stands for, as he roars his way through. But as he comes charging down towards Oak Tree Bend, well, the problem is William Humphrey is not just going to roll out the way and let this one go. As they enter the braking zone, both drivers, they're going so deep as well, running right on the limit, and I wouldn't be surprised if Torres there is getting a bit of hypnosis off the back of that BMW. It happens so easily. You watch the rear of the car in front intently looking for a mistake, and in the end you follow it into every corner, and you follow it deep when you don't need to. But Mercedes versus BMW here, and Torres looks the inside. He goes very late on the brakes. They tap the rear. It does send William Humphrey a little bit deep. Torres immediately makes sure not to capitalise from it, but you can tell how much he wants this off of Humphrey right now, but he doesn't want to do it unfairly as they come into the infield section. And well, as they make their way through, our leaders have gone on to what will be, I believe, their penultimate lap of racing, so they'll get a 25th lap in and then perhaps a 26th, depending on how traffic plays out. Whereas our GT3s, they've got this plus another 2 to go. But speaking of our GT, James, well, you said about they're going to catch traffic. Here's Graham Wildemont, and look what's in front of him. There's a lot of traffic, starting with Robin Pownier.
Yeah, Robin Pownier's moved out the way now, because he would have got caught up in that first one, and then he would have gone back past through. So he's aware that these guys are coming. He's just going to hold off, and he's going to let Francisco Barrionuevo through. Unfortunately, it looks like Tim Perry's not going to make it through. So it's round 2 between Francisco and Graham again, as Tim Perry makes his way through. I was just thinking, as these guys were racing so gentlemanly, and Graham, after that tap, let him back through. I mean, really, really sporting behaviour. That is absolutely amazing to see. But Tim Perry wouldn't have cared less. He would have thought, I don't care what you two are doing, I'm having this. And a 2-way battle becomes a 3-way as they cut through now. And it looks like the front 2 just have the legs on Tim Perry there. But a fantastic podium for Tim Perry as well in P3. And as I look down the timing tower, Paul, we've got battles going on everywhere within like half a second. We've got Diego Reiser and Samuel Clark. We've got Ali Torres and William Humphrey. We've then got Jesse Pulkinen and Matthew Croft. There's literally close battles for position on track everywhere as these two drivers come across the line in the lead. The Graham Wildman and Francisco are going to cross the line now, and I think this is going to be their final lap, Paul. And I don't know what's going to happen here.
Oh, I don't know either, James, and we've now got a bit of a conundrum, which is we've got a lead battle that goes on to its final lap for the GTEs, and Wildemont seems to be struggling at this point. He's going to go defensive into 2. Barrionuevo's going to look around the outside, and as he goes all in, it's going to be very low on the brakes here, but he's not going to have enough room to get it done around the outside. Wildemont says, I'll give you the space to breathe, nothing more. And as they head through, left hook and in towards the right-hander, Barrionuevo now has got to try and get a good exit. Humphrey versus Torres, we're keeping an eye on that off-screen, and right now that's staying at the moment 2 tenths between the 2 of them. Wildemont flashing his lights here right now. He's not an angry driver on the motorway. He's trying to point out to everyone, get out of the way because I'm leading and I've got a problem behind me. Tim Perry watches from behind a further second back and thinks to himself, okay, this could get interesting. But for Wildemont right now, this is a nightmare scenario. He's been absolutely breathed on by his rivals as he tucks up the inside there on the SJS Racing machine and makes it cleanly on through Oak Tree Bend. Does he get a good exit? No, a little bit of oversteer there, but Barrionuevo does the same. Tim Perry, meanwhile, watches on. In the GT3 lead battle, Humphrey versus Ali Torres. They're heading towards the end of their current lap. They'll have one more to go with the clock being at 0. It's always dictated by the lead car. So they make the way down through the roller coaster. 3/10 is the delta between the two of them as they roar the way onwards. They've got plenty of space to work with. They've got no traffic in front of them, so very different race. Torres all over the back of Humphrey as they make the way through. But as they head towards their final lap, and Torres there goes for a bit of grass trimming, that's going to curb his momentum. James, we come back to the very front of the GTE field, and Barrionuevo's close, but he's not close enough.
Yeah, I don't think he is going to be close enough here. And the gap that Graham's got to those other drivers in front, which looks to be Bobby Moss, the livery I can see of Bobby Moss, and probably is that Christopher Wamsler in there as well, as I think we can see from Francisco. But those tyres are absolutely giving up, and this is going to be a really awkward time as Graham looks to get on the inside, makes it through. It's all going to come down to this last corner.
Well, Barrionuevo goes wide. He goes wide out of the first quarter before Hog Pen. That's going to open up the gap. And Wildemont here has just got to survive the traffic to see the checker flag. And well, come the end of round number 3, it's been dominance by Barrionuevo. But today, Graham Wildemont finally takes victory here at VIR in GT and overall. Had a Francisco Barrionuevo who finishes second and gave it his all. Tim Perry will come on home in third of the GTEs ahead of Hayden Miller, who finishes 4th on the road in the end, knowing that today was all about damage limitation when it didn't quite work out, and Marius Hibmer will complete your top 5 of the GTs. But, ladies and gentlemen, we need to look a bit further back because William Humphrey right now is still under pressure from Ale Torres. It's not that we want to see the rest of the GTE field through, but they're battling for the lead of the GT3s, and it's going to be Torres looking around the outside. Maybe they both go deep. They both completely missed the corner, and as they come on back, Torres right now resets himself half a second back here on this final lap, and William Humphrey is still digging in. And Jonathan Humphrey asks in the YouTube chat, how did it get this stressful? I don't know, Jonathan, but I can tell you right now, we're stressing here in the commentary booth as William Humphrey's trying to hold on for dear life at the end of this race. Well, as they make the way on around, and these drivers push each other onwards, Torres is still there looking for an opportunity. And right now, James, I don't think he's got many more chances.
I don't think he has, Paul, no. I don't think he has. What a fantastic race from these two guys, as it looks like he is getting a little bit closer. Just when you say that there's not going to be an opportunity, it looks like he was getting a bit closer. But I think Williams got this covered. He's only got 4 corners left to go as he comes through
Torres
the
out of fuel
section.
Torres is stumbling with fuel right on board. He's got no gas left to go. Sorry to cut across you, James, but Torres is literally crawling to line. I don't know if he's going to make it to the end, as William Humphrey is going to run away with this to take the win in GT3 for crazy and good racing. Albeit he's running out of fuel as well. He's staggering to line. He's got momentum to get him there, but it's a race about who's got enough momentum to get to the finish. William Humphrey does arrive at his final destination, just about what Ale Torres do. I don't think he is. Somebody's pushing him along, though. They're going to try and help him get to line as the rest of the field now comes on through. In fact, it's going to be Pedro Luis da Silva who finishes in second of the GT3s. Harvey Wheeler will come through to take third, and Matthew Bacon has pushed Ale Torres along enough to help him get to 4th place. You could not make this up. The wheels are falling off the Enosis Esports wagon right at the finish line, and that is the story of the GT3s, with Matthew Croft completing the GT3 top 5. Well, how about that?
Wow. What a race. We must do this more often, Paul. We must do this more often. Flipping heck. What an absolute race. Yeah, I mean, very, very good there for Ale Torres to get a little push over the line, but I don't know whether some of the other GT3 drivers are going to see it that way, to be honest with you. So that's going to be an interesting one to see if that ends up going into the steward's room. But yeah, what a fantastic race. And also for the Enosis Esports team, dominance in the first 2 rounds, taking maximum points in both series. And it's just not worked out for them today, with Graham Wildman taking that GTE win from Francisco Barrionuevo. And then Ale Torres, I think William had got him covered anyway, to be honest with you. But yeah, just misjudged the fuel there. Maybe that extra lap has just caught him out. But wow, what a night of racing, Paul. Absolutely brilliant.
Oh, absolutely incredible. I agree with you 100%, James. I mean, goodness me, as the Axis SimSports drivers there decide to have a high-speed debate into the pit lane, and Thomas Pugh's ejected from his pit lane entry, and Ale Torres here just sat on the start-finish line. I think sat there thinking to himself, if only I put another litre in the car, what could have been? But still, what could have been versus the reality is always one of those matter-of-fact questions. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we take a look at your race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries. And here we are, starting with your GTEs. So after an incredible 60 minutes of racing here in round number 3 of the SimRacing International America's GT Challenge Championship at the Virginia International Raceway's Grand Course, hosted on iRacing and proudly powered by Trophy.ai. Graham Wildemont taking his first win of the season for Soy Boys Racing, doing it in the fairest possible fashion. Despite contact between himself and Francisco Barrionuevo, he made sure to give the place back and in the end got it done on circuit in an incredible battle between the two, with a small mistake from Barrionuevo in the end being the delta between the two of them. The Enosis esports driver taking second just behind, 1.3 seconds at line, but both absolutely tossed everything at this, and Barrionuevo's absolute stranglehold on victory finally being penetrated by Wildemont. Tim Perry, well, he took third place there. A brilliant effort from the Altitude 3M esports driver. Really the best of the rest and making sure not to make any mistakes, with Phoenix Racing Blues Hayden Miller fighting through to fourth place there, and knowing that today was another missed opportunity, and this time missing the podium. Marius Hibmer took fifth place for grazing at good racing. A very solid effort there on his return to the grid. The Danishman in the 94 BMW M8, and great to see the car variety in that top 5. GT normally rumoured to be dominated by Corvettes, but the fact we've got a Ford and also BMW in there, it shows there's some life in the balance points even yet. Then it was 3WR's Max Wheeler in 6th, ahead of Justin Null, with Thomas Pugh, Nick Stubb and Lewis Kenyon for Axis and Sport Lightning, Vulcan Fastest with Glass Tech Racing, and then Biltong and Bangers completing the GT top 10. Best of the rest of the 11th was Robin Aston for GPX SimSport Xenon, ahead of Pete Piver for LS Racing, and what an effort there from the Brazilian driver, ahead of Nils Kula, with the Axis SimSport Fire driver keeping him honest, but in the end falling to 5 seconds behind. Thiago Reza and Samuel Clark completed your GT top 15, with both of them having a good little battle, but Clark in the end not quite getting the upper hand of his Brazilian counterpart, but the Briton still finishing ahead of sim coaches Matthew Bacon, with Rob Edgell, Jesse Pullakainen and Rob Mackay all coming to difficulties at certain points in the race, particularly with Jesse Pullakainen being ejected after that contact with Yanis Albert in the early stages at Oak Tree Bend, and well, they finished off your lead lap with Andrew Montine a lap down in 20th, ahead of Andrew Fellows and Robin Noel Brown in 22nd. Outside the top 22, it was Jim Fox, and then we did see Michael Brooks, Martin Kenyon, Dalton Hall, and Jaden Scotton all experienced non-finishes of some degree or the other. But James, over to you to walk us through our GT3 finishers.
Yeah, wow, what a race, Paul. I'm struggling to get my breath back, to be honest with you. But yeah, we've got William Humphrey taking the win for the Grazing Good Racing team, making his return to the championship. And wow, what a return to make. So he was 12 seconds ahead in the end of second place finisher Pedro Luis de Silva for GPX SimSport Onyx. So congratulations to Pedro. Really good result for him. Really, really unfortunate for Ali Torres there. But another podium there for Harvey Wheeler. So a great result for him, for the Three Wheelers Racing team. Fourth, Matthew Croft. Matthew went a little bit under the radar, so apologies, Matthew, if we didn't manage to get you covered much tonight, but the action's been absolutely everywhere, as you'll see when you watch the stream back. So, yeah, great result for Matthew there in P4. Ali Torres, unfortunately, running out of fuel there towards the end, did get pushed over the line to take the P5. Rhys Saunders in P6 for the Altitude 3M esports team in his BMW. Bobby Moss, a very solid 7th place for Phoenix Racing Blue. Sigurd Christopher Wamsler for Panda Spec Motorsports Green in 8th, followed by Archie Williams for SGS Racing in 9. Another driver that we didn't really cover much tonight, so sorry about that, Archie, but I'm sure we'll get you on the stream next time. We got Robin Pownier in 10th place, so we did cover Robin a little bit, albeit at some inopportune moments when the GTEs were coming past, but a great P10 for Robin Pownier. Mikey Story reserving for Justin Eloff in P11 for the Bilton and Bangers team. Joe Glass, P12, so Joe was running much further downfield and did have 2 pit stops. So Joe's made a good recovery into P12, followed by Chris Jennings for the Axis SimSport Fire team in P13. We've got Brandon White in P14 for LS Racing 02 and Grant Miller in P15 for Phoenix Racing Red. So a good run out there for Grant. I know that Grant wasn't looking forward to this particular configuration of the track. So to come in P15, I imagine he'd be quite pleased with that. We've got John Ebersole in P16 for Panda Spec Motorsports Blue, followed by Wesley Van Rens, 9 Pegasus Pantera in his Ferrari. Ashley Brooks in P18. We saw that little incident there for Ashley, unfortunately. 19th was Simon Hunt for Quatermass Motorsport. I'll not get that wrong this time. Quatermass Motorsport, Simon Hunt in P19. And Lucas Finco, we saw Lucas have that little bit of an incident rounding out the last of the points finishers for the wrong stuff in P20. Other finishers were Ed Juncker in P21, Francois Brandet for covering for James Hayworth, who can't race tonight, in P22. Scott Kostrick covering for John Ludbrook in P23. Danny Weir covering for Owen Seward in P24. John Malnerich 2 laps down in P25. Dean Tyler, P26, was 8 laps down. Jonas Larsson 10 laps down. And Yanis Albert, arrive and drive by ORA Motorsports. Not a great night for their team tonight. Ryan Stitchbury, I don't believe, made it back from Silverstone on time and couldn't get his reserve in on time. So, yeah, not a great haul of points for the arrive and drive by ORA Motorsports team. But I'm sure they will be back, Paul, in 2 weeks' time.
Oh, 100%. And well, whilst they'll be back in 2 weeks' time, we will be back in approximately 5 minutes, ladies and gentlemen, for our post-round interviews, because what a race. And we need to hear the story from our drivers, and we will have a good number of those interviews due to get underway shortly. But whilst you do wait, let us know what your favourite moment of today's round of racing was, and we'll be back soon to have a word with our drivers. Don't go anywhere. You won't want to miss it. We'll speak to you very shortly.
Of the green flag, and there we go. Tristan immediately getting the jump on his teammate Luke Lucchese, and he's going to have to go the long way around the outside. It's not done yet because Luke will have that favoured inside line going into turn 1 side by side. Has had a good start. He's up 2 places around the outside of Luke Lucchese. 3 wide there, the blue Acura on the inside. Hayden Phoenix Miller has gone from 4th to 1st in the matter of 1 braking zone there, and he will carry these drivers now down in toward turn 4. Great start there for the debutant who had strong qualifying pace, and now he might be up with an opportunity of making that stick if he can get the clean air in the next, and Plurg could have a good run here. Let's ride on board. How does the Noblica defend going into the chicane? Is Plurg going to do that tactic where you just stay there right until the last? And Noblica moves over to the entry into the chicane. Good driving. That's a wobble by Tristan, and he's off the road. He's going to lose the position. Is he going to stick up the inside? No. And is Justin Eloff going to fancy his chances? No, he stays.
Watkins Glen, and to have only 9 minutes before we reset and go again gives, I think, the drivers a bit of a moment to pause for thought, because how are you going to manage this, especially if you're 3 wide down the main straight? Humphrey, Leskinen, Catrali, all don't get out Raj Harper either. 2 by 2 into the opening corner. Outside line taken for Humphreys. Also a little bit of time on the exit though, as it looks like it's a better run for Kalle Leskinen, the leader now in that pro class, as they run their way up the hill through 2 and 3. It looks like Raz Harper's got the best run, and now we could see both elite drivers come through on both pro drivers. So they'll have to get it done on the outside of the bus stop, and that is going to be more than difficult to do. Who's going to get the slipstream? That could be crucial.
And as we now head towards the line, the first round of the season in the America's GT Challenge is underway, and there's a bit of a check-up on the second row of the grid there, as some of the guys have to really slow down and keep it under wraps. But now as they go into the first corner for the first time, hopefully everybody keeping it nice and clean. We'll have to see just how they do. All the GTEs making their way through. Obviously there's a bit of a gap back to the GT3s. They have their own race starting separately, and it's Justin Eloff ahead of Alex.
Getting a bit busy though towards the front of the GT. There's a bit of bump drafting. Perry's in here as well. Tim's looking to try and find his way through. Brian Wildmon at the back of this pack as well. Hayden Miller getting the big old push from Perry as they work their way towards the opening corner. I think it's probably quite smart from Tim there just to keep Hayden closer to the front too, because if Hayden loses out, they all lose out. So he's not necessarily going for that move.
Go for it as he looks all the way in towards the exit. 2 by 2 they go behind Christopher Wandler and Moss there. Well, they have swapped places back to how they were. And, well, this is going to be Williams. A small tap between the two of them. They just about survive it. And in the end, Archie Williams is going to make the move. Stick around the outside. That's bold. That's brave. But that's how you get it done. And well, across the line he goes. And now Christopher Wandler also ahead there as Bowie Moss gets forward. And now they make the way down. You can see he's pulling over there, Darren. He's not happy. He knows he's vulnerable.
He does, and he's just defending that inside line. He knows it's difficult to walk around the outside into the S's. Barrionuevo is going to try it though. He's got a great run, and he's already passed. He's already passed before we get to the corner, easy as you like. And Wilmon can do absolutely nothing to defend there. The exit wasn't too poor for the Ford Mustang, but there's too much pace in that Corvette in the straight line. And Barrionuevo just waves bye-bye. Easy for the 77.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we return, and we return then for our post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers. And what a race it was. And the best driver for us to hear from, first and foremost, of course, is going to be the man who today finally took his first win of the season. It is none other than Graham Wildemon, who joins me now in the interview room. Graham, 3 attempts it has taken in terms of the number of rounds. It took you 3 attempts on the circuit today to take the lead. But when you did, you finally have taken it and come through to take your first victory of the season. How does it feel? Because that was an absolutely incredible race, so much so that James actually had to go on mute because he's got no voice left because of how close the racing was.
I mean, I think I'm about as speechless as you guys are. I think I've lost about 2 pounds worth of water weight through that race. We were pushing each other to the very end there, but I mean, I didn't want to pass him with a tag like that with the weird checkup with the lap traffic. So I wanted to do it right, wanted to put on a good show for you guys, and luckily things came out my way this time.
Oh, you did put on an absolutely brilliant show. And again, what we've seen is whilst the Corvette is perhaps the most popular car in GTE, there is still some life in the other machines. And the Ford GT today, at Mosport, it looked like you had all the pace in the corners, but just didn't quite have enough on the straights or on the long term. But here, VIR, a circuit that's very dominated by a corner variety, it looked as though you were at home here.
Yeah, funny enough, I actually just used the same setup as Mosport for this track. Just ended up working better on the tire wear. You know, trying to learn from last time out with a lack of straight line speed, it just wasn't working out, trimming the car out anymore. So figured run a little bit more downforce, hold on to the tires, and you know, as the race went on there, he was struggling more and more, and I was able to close up the gap and finally make the move.
Now, talking about over the distance, of course, yourself and Francisco ran very close together all the way through the opening stint. However, it did look as though, particularly when you all came up behind GT3 traffic, there was this constant Francisco would carve a way through, and you very quickly had to jump in behind him. I mean, take us through that, because in GTEs, there's the challenge, which is you have no ABS, so having to squeeze the brakes a little bit more, I can imagine it was a constant sort of, have I locked up, have I not? You're pretty right on the limit.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be real comfortable in this car, and luckily this is one of the cars in the service that I've spent the most amount of time in, but we make up all of our lap time on these GT3 cars in the corners. Especially with the setup I was running today, I maybe had a mile an hour on them at the end of the straights, so, you know, if Francisco was making a gap, I just had to go for it, or else I would have been a second and a half, 2 seconds back by the time I cleared the traffic.
Well, it's absolutely fair. You had to go for it, like you say, but you did so fairly. Although, coming on to the strategy then, we did see you come in a little bit earlier compared to Francisco. Was that always part of the plan to go for the undercut, or was that a bit of a spur-of-the-moment thing?
It was a bit of a spur-of-the-moment thing. I kind of started to see him struggle through the mid part of the race, and I thought I could have a little bit more pace with some clear air. Unfortunately, I had some bad comings together with one of the GT3 cars on that last lap before he came out of the pit. So I think I would have had the crossover before he came out if it wasn't for some unfortunate traffic there in the 2 laps in between.
Well, some unfortunate traffic playing its part, no doubt, but still close together, and it set us up for an incredible finale. And just take us through that, because all the way through, lap after lap in the final 20 minutes, you're right behind him. You're within 2, 3 attempts. And then suddenly, the traffic causes the two of you to bunch together. But before that, of course, there's a mistake he makes into the corner that we can't say it's Action Aim live on air because we want to try and keep this child friendly. But you know the corner we're referring to, and you're side by side with him into the infield.
Yeah, I wasn't ready for that move. I saw he's been struggling into that corner. Every once in a while he would go a little deep, but he definitely went way too deep there. I just kind of went for it, stuck my nose in, and kind of hung on for dear life around the outside. Unfortunately, I tried to get a switchback through the hairpin after that little carousel section. It didn't quite work, but I'm glad that we're showing respect to each other. And I like to race hard, but I like to race fair, so I appreciate that he does the same.
Oh, 100%. It's some of the fairest racing we have seen, and, well, it's an absolute joy to witness. And then subsequently, of course, I mean, the infamous bit of sportsmanship we got to see from yourself when you did make that contact. You mentioned earlier about the strange checkup behind the GT3, but were you of two minds at all in the fact that, okay, you're giving the place back, but then suddenly Tim Perry is literally right behind the pair of you as a result of you being an absolute gentleman?
Yeah, I race in VIR, so normally I don't have the black box up while I'm driving, but I had it pulled up there, just kind of watching Tim's gap come closer and closer and closer. So luckily, Francisco was able to get it rolling again, so we could stay in front of him. But I was fully prepared to let Tim by and not take the position for Francisco, because that's not how I want to race.
Oh, that's absolutely fair from you. And to be fair, I think he'll absolutely appreciate that when he hears that after the racing. And then when you did make the move that finally happen, I mean, you've actually absolutely had to pull everything out of this Ford GT to make it work. There must have been a huge smile on your face to make the move and then hold on to the checkered flag.
Yeah, my friends in the Discord chat heard my microphone max out a couple times as we passed the start-finish line there. But yeah, I mean, the Corvette can hold on to its tires for so long, and they don't have to run so much downforce. I kind of have to think about how I'm driving this car a lot more just to hang on to have something at the end of the race. So I'm glad I was able to work out this week. Setup tinkering, something I'm gonna have to get good with to keep up the momentum here. But hopefully, this means we got a fight in our hands for the championship.
Oh, 100%. That's what we want to see. A championship battle between yourself and Francisco all the way to the very end. And speaking of what's up next, Interlagos awaits us in 2 weeks' time. How are you feeling for the Brazilian circuit?
Oh, that's one of my favorites. I love that track to death. I'm going to be practicing a lot for it. So hopefully I can put on another good show for you guys and come home with another win.
Well, we'll hold you to it and look forward to seeing whether you can make it back-to-back wins and level the score with Francisco. But until then, Graham, just before I do let you go, is there anyone you want to give a shout-out or a thank you to live on the broadcast today?
Yeah, I'll give a shout-out to my dad. He wanted to tune in today and watch, so I'm glad I was able to put on a good show and bring home a W today. So, hey, Dad, how's it going?
I'm sure your dad's going to be absolutely proud of you, no doubt about it, Graham. Well, with that, thank you for joining us in the interview room. Congratulations on your maiden win of the season, and we'll see you in Interlagos in 2 weeks' time to see if you can make it 2 from 2.
Thanks, fellas.
So hearing there, ladies and gentlemen, from Graham Wilderman, who absolutely delivered today. And just before we get ourselves set for our second interview, James, if you are there with me at the moment, I appreciate you might still be recovering your voice. A very happy Graham Wilderman there. I mean, I think he finally feels as though he's found a way into that championship.
Yeah, absolutely. What a fantastic interview. What a gent as well. So yeah, lovely to hear also a shout out to his dad. So a very good evening, or is it afternoon, where Mr. Wildman Senior is. So yeah, and I mean, if he says that he absolutely loves Interlagos next week, my goodness me, if this is a track that he doesn't absolutely love, we can expect fireworks next week, Paul. That's for sure.
Oh, 100% we can. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, we get ourselves set now for our second interview. We'll be back in approximately 30 seconds, and we'll reveal who our next interview is. Don't go anywhere, because I think it's someone you're going to love to hear from. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we are back then for our second interview, and joining us now in the interview room is none other than William Humphrey for Grazing Good Racing. William, that was a tough race. You huffed, you puffed, and in the end it was Ale Torres who ran out of puff right at the close, but you were made to work for that one all the way through. But it must feel good to be back on the grid and be immediately back to winning ways.
It's good to be back, yeah, especially winning in GT3 is not my best car. GT4s are mostly, but we actually both ran out of fuel at the end. That's why I was so slow at the end, because I was saving fuel hand over fist. But I just ran out of fuel a little bit later, which meant I crossed the line, and thankfully I had that gap to Pedro Luis da Silva, I think it was. So that means I kept P1 in the end.
Oh, goodness me. We're all about the fuel. I mean, the two of you pushed each other to the absolute limit, but before we come all the way to talking about that conclusion and all the different things that were going on, let's wind it all the way back to qualifying. And indeed, in fact, a new car technically, because BMW M4, yes, but the BMW M4 Evo, what's it been like getting to grips with the upgraded car?
It's not too different from the old BMW, but it's just a little bit more limited than it already was, which is quite bad, to be honest. When we were in practice, I realised how bad traffic was. I mean, I knew it was going to be bad, but I realised how bad it was. So I was like, okay, I'll try a more higher downforce spec setup. So that means I can then get the outlying pace of it, which means then hopefully I can get a higher position and I can just keep track position throughout the race, which worked out quite well. I pulled the lap out of a hat, basically a Jeddah 21 Max Verstappen lap, but actually finished it. I'd never thought I'd get there, and that wrote the story of the race, to be honest.
Well, absolutely fair. Surprise lap there to put yourself on pole, and from there having it all click together. Although there's two questions I have to ask firstly. The first one being at the start, you had a very good start given the segregation of the GT3 start compared to the GTEs, but you weren't quite able to break away from Ale Torres or Yanis Albert. What was that like in the first 20 minutes, given the fact that the three of you were so quick you were catching up to the rear of the GTE pack?
Wow, jeez. That was really difficult. The GT's more than the people behind me. I knew for the first stint it was all about just keeping it on the line, keeping it out of the barriers or out of the grass. Again, it's just so hard to overtake around here. But the GTs were very, very difficult. We I out-qualified like I think it was 7 or 8 GT3s in the end. And that means obviously they start ahead of us. And then going through some of these corners, they're a lot slower than us because of a difference in skill or just because of how they drive or because they are just slower in the corners, but then also run away on the straight. So that means they then get caught up in the corners, and then they'd run away on the straight and not get in the full extent of the slipstream. But obviously, and because they all packed together, it was so difficult to get through them. So I ended up fighting a load of GTEs throughout most of the race.
Well, you spent as much time fighting GTs as you did GT3s, and of course I can imagine that must have a little bit of an odd connotation about it, because you're battling with a car that has more straight line speed compared to yourself and a lot more engine power, but you've got the better brakes and handling capability. So how in the end are you finding your way through?
Luck, mostly. Basically, if they made a mistake, I'd focus on the other GTE making a mistake, and then I'd capitalise on that mistake and hopefully get ahead of them, because then that means I knew I could stay ahead of them at that point. But it was also all about keeping my head and not losing it behind these GTs who were making mistakes or going slower, and I just needed to make sure that I wasn't going to do anything stupid.
Well, you definitely kept your wits about you and didn't do anything silly. So now let's talk about the strategy picture. We did see for the GT3s, once again, able to go long on the fuel tank, but with regards to when you pitted, was it as planned or did you have to improvise your strategy?
When I was pitted, it was as planned. It's better to go long in these races because you add less fuel. But I have two different fuel calculators, and I was just screwed up between the two of them. So I chose the sort of middle ground between the two of them, and I ended up choosing a little bit too much fuel. So I had to fuel save like hell in the last bits of the race, and so did Ali apparently, because he ran out of fuel at the end as well as me.
Well, on that note then, going towards the end, so fuel saving from yourself, I think that explains what Jonathan Humphrey, I believe related to you, although I don't know the relation.
Yeah, he's my dad.
Well, your dad asking, how did it get so stressful? Now we know it was because of the fuel saving. And just take us through what was going through your mind in the car in those last couple of laps, because it all seems to be going the way of Ale Torres, only for us to suddenly discover he's absolutely running out of fuel to the point it's stuttering coming down the roller coaster, and you're just grudgy creeping off a little bit, although you ran out of fuel, but you've got enough momentum to get to the finish line.
Yeah, it was, as soon as I came out of the pits, I was like, poo, I screwed this up. But I just fuel saved a lot, and then as he caught up to me, I kind of did what Fernando Alonso did to Hamilton back in Hungary. Just kept my lines, kept my wits about me, and went slower through some corners to then get a better exit out of another, like the corner we're seeing now. And when we got to the final lap, I think I was like 0.2 laps away from finishing with fine fuel. And as we got out of the Grand Course section, I was like, nah, that's it. I can't do any more. And I thought he was going to get me. Then as we came out, that right-hander, he started to slow down, like, something's not right here. What's that? What's happening? And then he didn't pick up a speed at all. I'm like, oh my god, no way, he's run out of fuel. And then at that point, I was shouting yes, yes, yes to my teammates. And then across the line just about, don't know what speed I was doing, but it was definitely a lot slower than I should be.
Oh, goodness me. What a roller coaster ride of emotions in literally the last couple 100 metres of a race that definitely went down to the wire. And absolutely fantastic to hear that elation from yourself. And, well, a first win on the board and only 3 rounds in. Surely this has got to be the first of many then when we head to Interlagos in 2 weeks' time.
I hope so. I'm missing a couple rounds due to personal things, but I'm going to try my best. I've got Yanis back in the back in the grid, so he's always a god when it comes to GT3s, but I'm definitely trying my best to get better at the GT3s, and I found the car that I'm starting to like a little bit more than the Porsche. I just need to learn how to get learn how to limit the rear limited moments of this car.
Well, that's absolutely fair, and we look forward to seeing whether you can get better to grips with the BMW M4 Evo and continue on a good run of results as the season goes on. But just before we do let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on air?
I'd like to give a shout out to all my family. There's a load of them, so I won't list them off, sorry. I'd also like to give a massive shout out to my girlfriend, who's always here with me, who's always looking after me, especially when I do dumb stuff. And to you, SRI, and setting up this event and broadcasting this league.
Well, that's absolutely fair, and well done the correction there. Otherwise, you would have had to have put 20p in the proverbial swear jar that we've been keeping track of all evening. But joking aside, Matt, oh, goodness me. Will, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join us in the interview this evening. And with that, congratulations on your victory in GT3. And we look forward to seeing what you are able to achieve at Interlagos 2 weeks from now. But until then, my friend, have a great rest of your evening.
You too. Thanks so much.
So here in there, ladies and gentlemen, from William Humphrey and James, the grazing good racing driver, absolutely looking to be on fine form, no doubt about it. And as he makes his way into round number 4, I think he'll feel as though the momentum is definitely on his side.
Yeah, it was what a return to the championship, Paul. Absolutely brilliant performance with, starting from qualifying, working his way through. I mean, it was nice to hear what the strategy was that was going on, because that kind of makes sense of what we were saying with Ale Torres. I think you said at one point he'd gained 7/10 a lap for 2 or 3 laps, so it was nice that we did manage to spot something accurately. But yeah, to hear what it was that actually caused that and went on behind it, absolutely fantastic. So yeah, big credit to those 2 guys. Brilliant race, brilliant performance. Such a shame for Ale Torres to run out of fuel on the last lap, but that's all part of racing, Paul, I guess. And I mean, certainly for the next time, he'll probably put an extra couple of litres in just to be absolutely sure. And it sounds like William was also very lucky as well, by all accounts, just running out of fuel there just before the line.
Oh, 100%. But as they say, to finish first you must finish. And, well, clearly, Will just had enough, whereas Ale Torres did not, fuel tank-wise. And then a bit of luck being on the side of one driver rather than the other when it came to that fuel tank. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're in luck because we've got one final interview lined up. And we are going to be back in about 30 seconds for our final interview of this evening. Don't go anywhere. Well, it's coming up shortly. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, for our final interview of the evening, we've spoken to our winners in both classes, but let's now talk to other drivers a bit further down the order. And for Axis Sim Sports Ice, we have the pleasure of hearing from Matthew Croft. Good evening to you, Matthew, and well, a fun day of racing today for yourself. Looks as though you had plenty to be enjoyed here at the VIR circuit, and in the end, netting yourself a rather understated 4th place in the GT3 class. How's it been?
It was 4th, was it?
It was indeed.
I thought it was 5th. I'm even happier now. Oh, this is great. Yeah, pretty happy with that, to be fair. It got a bit messy all the way through the race of the GTEs. A few of them making a few mistakes, and then obviously mingling with us all. But I think with a bit of communications with everybody, all the overtakes were easily done, and brake a little bit early to let them pass. Yeah, it's good. Interesting track, not going to lie.
Oh, well, I've just been double-checking the background. It definitely is full according to the iRacing official results, so you can enjoy an extra place there compared to what you perhaps expected. But
Thanks for the gift.
When you say it's an interesting track, what have you found interesting about it? Because, of course, coming into this round and early in the season, a lot of drivers were sort of, we're doing the grand course of VIR, hold up. Have the organisation team lost their marbles?
Yeah, it was a bit crazy. I was like, I actually quite like VIR, so I was like, oh, this is great. I've done a bit of practice because it was officials like 3-4 weeks ago, and then I read the small print grand. I was like, what makes it grand? So I did some practice, and I'm not gonna lie, I used that repeat thing you can do on iRacing to repeat the inner circuit. I just kept going straight over on the grass for about 2 hours. It took a long time to get used to it, but if you can sort of master the inner track, you can get some good times out of it. It's just really hard to master it because a lot of the corners are so blind, like on hills, and you're thinking, am I turning in too early? Am I turning in too late? And I got to admit, I think at one point I actually shot across the grass at some pace, so I'm very surprised I managed to get it back on.
Well, you may have had a bit of a moment with the grass, and I think, in fact, every driver today has had a moment where they've actually gone outside and touched grass, proverbially, outside the track surface, I should say, not outside their homes. But putting the internet pun aside, qualifying, 9th in class. Were you happy with your qualifying session? Something tells me perhaps you wanted a little bit more.
Yeah, I wasn't too happy with that. If I'm honest, obviously we got the update this week, and the BMW got a full makeover, which is great. You know, the car does feel a lot better, but no setups whatsoever. And I rely on setup shops and things like that to find how I can't do them myself. I'm not that clever. But so there's no setups for VIR whatsoever. So I'm having to sort of try use other ones, or I think I used the high downforce endurance, just the standard one. But practicing same temperatures as I was doing 22.7s or 22.6, I think was my quickest. So I definitely had a lot more pace before the updated it, and I'm like struggling for grip in certain corners, and so I just decided to go with the high downforce, put a bit more traction, a bit more ABS, so it's a little bit safer, because I think this race was about survival really. Stay on the tarmac and just do sort of average speed all the time. But I think I could have got a little bit more on my qualifying. I think I was going through the inner circuit and I lost a couple of hundredths, but I was still happy with that, to be fair. Some really strong guys at the top there, and with me, I'm only a 2-point summit rated, so I'm pretty happy where I've come.
You definitely sound happy of where you come, given how it all started and the change that lies ahead, and also having to adjust to a car that, like you said, there's very little publicly available knowledge on how to set up the BMW M4 EVA at this time. With regards to over the race distance, of course, challenges out there, you being one of our top 10 GT3 drivers, perhaps less so having to worry about the GTEs carving their way past you, but having to work overtakes out here. Did you find it was all relegated to the full course, or were there opportunities to make moves elsewhere?
If I'm honest, there's only 2 or 3 opportunities, like places to take these opportunities, and I had a few GTEs behind me, and I said, look, on the chat or whatever, I was able to say, could you wait? And then a lot of them did wait, and then I sort of broke early the corner before the straight and then let them pass, sort of thing. So I think a lot of them did work with us. Some of them didn't, and you just got to be aware of that. But I mean, every track can be saved as long as you work together, sort of thing. But it's I did think eventually, because I was, before I pitted a little bit early because I was covered in GTEs. I must have had 3 in front of me, 2 behind me, and I was like, yeah, they were fighting for position. I was thinking, this is just getting dangerous. So I pitted early, got out of the way of them, got in a bit of clean air, and that helped quite a fair bit.
Well, a smart move there to get yourself away from the GTEs and give yourself plenty of clear space to work with. And like you say, worked out, made up some places, made up some time. And then on the last couple of laps, also made up some further places. You thought you'd finish 5th. Just take us through the last couple of laps. It sounds as though it was almost as if the places were coming as quickly as the laps.
To be fair, I was obviously we were in the Discord with all the drivers and everything from our team chatting and things like that, and they're all like chatting like they'd finished and things like that, and I was like, guys, I'm still racing. Turns out that it just timed it right that I had to do an extra lap, so fuel was really a bit tight. And I think that was a problem with a few of the other people. That might be why I gained a place, because there was a few cars lagging behind on pace and everything because of fuel. Luckily, I left my the auto fuel on full 1 lap extra, and I'm glad I did, because that saved me, to be fair. But I'm guessing that's why I probably got it. But I don't know, my last few laps were all right. I was losing the tyres towards the end because I punished them far too much. I know what I'm like. I've said this to you before when I did, season 8, I think, GD3. I punished the car far too much all the time, brake too heavy and turn too heavy. But yeah, it wasn't too bad towards the end. I had in my brain, I was like, survive. I saw Reese on my relatives catching me up. I was thinking, Jesus, he's fast as well. He's going to come get me. And he dropped down, and guessing he sort of had fuel issues as well. So I was thankful for that.
Well, thankful in the end not to be caught by Reece Saunders. And, well, as a result, bringing on home a 5th on the road that was converted to a 4th as a result of drivers running out of fuel. And with that, your first top 5 of the season. Can we expect more when we head to Interlagos in 2 weeks from yourself?
No. I've never driven the track, to be fair, never stepped foot on it. So someone I was just in an interview room waiting to come in, and someone was like, oh, yeah, into whatever it's called. I was like, no idea. So I best get some practice in, really, and yeah, looking forward to it. I'm enjoying this season so far. It's a really good series. I like the fact that there's 2 weeks between every race, so it gives you a good bit of time to practice and fit it in. I've got 2 small children, so I struggle to find time to race, but 2 weeks is great sort of space for me to do a bit of practice. So I best get myself on that new track and figure it out, or else I won't be coming anywhere.
Well, we look forward to seeing whether you can reap the benefits of your efforts in practicing for Interlagos. But just before we do let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to on tonight's broadcast?
Just the team, the Axis guys, absolutely phenomenal. And team owner, team owner Tom, he's amazing with us all, looks after us all, and we're really good friends. We have gone from strength to strength, and it's a fantastic team to be part of. So just want to thank those guys for putting up with me and all my sarcastic jokes, and generally just supporting each other and doing practice sessions together and things like that. They're absolutely fantastic.
Oh, it's absolutely brilliant. I do love to hear when everything's clicking together with the team. Well, your time at Axis Sims for Ice, no exception. Well, with that, Matthew, it has been a pleasure having you join me in the interview room. Well done on the 4th place in GT3 today. A brilliant result. Your first top 5 of what could be several this season. We look forward to seeing whether you can have another great day at Interlagos. But until then, have a great rest of your evening. I'm sure we'll speak to you again later in the season.
Well, thanks very much, mate. Have a good one and speak to you soon.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from Matthew Croft, who absolutely delivered today with a top 5 finish. Although interesting, James, the fact that he thought he'd finished 5th, only to find out he'd finished 4th. So therefore a little bit of a cherry on top of the proverbial cake. And what a solid effort from him.
Yeah, brilliant performance from him. Absolutely. I think Matthew's been extremely modest, Paul, there. He, in a field of this, like, strength of field with these GT3 drivers, I've raced against Matthew a couple of seasons, and he's an absolutely solid guy, solid driver, really proper gentleman. So yeah, I think to finish P4 on this grid, he should be very, very proud of himself. Fantastic result, and I'm not worried about Interlagos for him, because I've seen him kind of race on other circuits where he's not had much experience, and it doesn't take Matthew long at all. So yeah, interesting what he said about the couple of weeks break, and you don't really think about that when you're in multiple series and multiple championships. But yeah, it's really nice to hear that having that kind of week break really helps Matthew with his kind of family commitments, and just spreads it out a little bit, allowing him time to practice. So yeah, looking forward to seeing how he goes at Interlagos, that's for sure.
Ah, you and me at both. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we bring our interviews to a close. And we want to say a big thank you there to our 3 interviews from this evening. We firstly heard from both of our class winners, and it was Graham Wilderman who kicked us off there for Sawyer Boys racing the GT class, finally taking home that maiden win in an incredible battle for victory. And the same can be said for William Humphrey, returns to the grid for Grays and Good Racing and takes the GT3 win following a pole position there. Brilliant effort from him, even if the fuel was looking a bit drastic. And then we just heard from from Matthew Croft for Axis SimSport Ice in the GT3 class, talking about a difficult qualifying session but a very happy race, and all it all really enjoying the VIR circuit and getting to flex his muscle at a circuit that not many were looking forward to, but in the end everyone seems to have had a good time with. But with that, it is time for us to wrap up. And well, it's been an absolutely brilliant day today of racing. I'm sure we all agree. And James, if we've got somebody out there right now who's sat there wanting to be on the grid at SimRacing International, I mean, we haven't just got our wonderful Sunday series where they've been tuning into the America's GT Challenge Championship. We've got a lot on at the moment and even more to come in the near future.
We do, Paul. Yeah, we do. I'm glad you've nicely segued that over my way. But yeah, we do indeed. So we've got our GT3 championship that runs on a Thursday evening, and that's been our kind of stalwart. That's our traditional series that Evolution Sim Racing, as it was previously known, would have previously ran. We do have a sellout grid for that. We start in another week's time with pre-season, A and B split. This time around we have split it up, so we've got the pro class running with the Evo drivers, and we've got the Premier class running with the elite drivers, which is going to be a really interesting dynamic to see how that goes. Whilst we are full, we are still accepting people onto the waiting list, because unfortunately in real life things get in the way of our sim racing hobby, as you know. So people do withdraw, so we then work our way down the waiting list. In more recent news, so we've just partnered with UK Sim Racing, so we are now also running their GT3 Sunday Championship. So that was advertised a week or so ago, and that is also full. So we've got 60 drivers for that, and a massive shout out and thank you to everybody from UK Sim Racing that's kind of jumped on board with us as part of the new partnership. So really excited to see that get underway, and that's being broadcast post race by yourself, which is, again, can't wait to watch that. We've obviously got the America's GT Challenge, which you've seen tonight, which is a teams championship. We are thinking already what will be the replacement of the America's GT Challenge. So there'll be further news on that. And then we are also looking at a new season or a new championship for Monday evenings, which will be either GT4 or Porsche Cup. So both of those have previously been run within ESR in its previous name and form, and also in UKSR as well. So we're just trying to get everything sorted out to make sure that when we do launch a new championship, we do it properly. We're not big fans of kind of just messing around and getting it wrong. So yeah, we've got a little bit more organisation to do before we can release the calendar and details on that. And then last but no means least, we've got a free practice league that we run every Tuesday evening. So the Tuesday evening mirrors the calendar for the Thursday GT3s. And then we're also running a Saturday morning race, which will mirror the calendar of the UKSR Sunday GT3 Championship. And then every other Saturday, we have a practice race for the GTE GT3 in the afternoon. So, yeah, and anybody can join that. So you don't have to be a registered championship entrant. If you just want to get on track with SRI, you can join the Discord, apply to the practice league, and you can pick and choose whichever one you want to run, whether it's on a Tuesday, a Saturday, or a Saturday afternoon, just to get some track time and, you know, maybe just get it out first introduction into league racing. So there's a lot of noobs like myself. We look to learn off some of the more experienced drivers, and it's great for the slower drivers that want to get experience. The practice league is really the perfect place to start. So yeah, lots going on, and yeah, it's quite exciting times, Paul.
Oh, 100%. I think you've put it up quite nicely there, James. There's never been a better time to be on the grid at SimRacing International. And if you want to be on the grid, it'll just become part of the community. Do use the Discord invite link at the bottom of your screen, and you can be a part of the community that's ever growing ever quickly. But we'd also like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our series and league sponsors, who do include, of course, our title sponsor, Trophy.ai. We also do have Carme, More Than Technology. We also have SimCoach, where you can unlock your true potential potential as a sim racing driver and even apply that in the real world of motorsport. And we also do have the GP2 group, and we'd also like to say a big thank you to Motorsport UK's esports division for recognising us here at SimRacing International as a recommended community, and we look forward to continuing that relationship with Motorsport UK into the future. But what it does mean, James, is that sadly we have to wrap things up for now, but not for long, because of course 2 weeks from now, round number 4, Sunday, the 28th of September 2025. It's going to be Brazil, Interlagos, and if we can think of Interlagos, one thing we know for certain is nothing is certain at the Brazilian circuit.
Yeah, it's going to, and it's the second of our 90-minute races, Paul, as well. So yeah, it's going to be a cracking evening's racing. 90 minutes tends to bring out a slightly more cautious, careful approach from some of the drivers. Not everybody, but from some of the drivers, because obviously 90 minutes is a slightly longer race. Not quite endurance as such, but in relative terms for a broadcast race, it's a nice, a nice time to run it. So and I have, while you've been talking, I have recalled that Dara may also not be available for Interlagos. So unfortunately, you may be stuck with me again, Paul, in another 2 weeks' time. But I'll certainly, hopefully, be a bit more kind of au fait with looking at 3 different screens in 2 weeks' time. That's for sure, because it's been a baptism of fire tonight. But just before you wrap up, Paul, I just want to take this opportunity on behalf of all the admin team at SRI, both past and present, just to give a shout out and a massive thank you to yourself for all the work that you've put in for ESR and now with SRI. So I think from a driver's perspective, we all absolutely look forward to watching these broadcasts back. And I know that friends and family and drivers up and down the grid send us numerous messages just saying what an amazing broadcast you do. So yeah, big shout out and a big thank you to you. And from my side, it's been an absolute pleasure to be able to kind of, let's say, co-commentate tonight. And I think we've only got £1.20 in the swear box between us, so that works out about 60 pence each, my friend. So yeah, big shout out and a big thank you to you, Paul.
Oh, thank you, James. That's very kind of you to say. And, well, if you are joining me as of Interlagos in 2 weeks' time, well, it was a baptism by fire today, no doubt about it. But I look forward to the pleasure of having you in the Conto booth with me again, if it's not Dara. But either way, I'm sure we'll cross paths and be on commentary again in the near future. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, well, keep in mind that today at VIR, we have seen the breaking of the stranglehold by Ionosis Esports by some of our other drivers. In GTE, Graham Wilderman finally landed his first win for the Soy Boys Racing team. And in GT3, it was Grays and Good Racing's William Humphrey. Will we see new names take victory? Will it be returning names? Will Ionosis Esports get their revenge? Well, for all that and more, come tune in 2 weeks' time on Sunday, the 20th of September, 2025, to find out how the story continues in the SimRacing International AGTC. But until then, in the booth, it's been myself, Paul Walsh, and also James Bostock. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, as always, remember to stay on track. Good night.
For the upcoming right-hander, brake 30 meters later and ease off the pressure.